Puzzles. There is a whole slew of amazing programming ideas that will be presented to let your patrons know that they can create the most masterful pieces of art at their libraries. As we all know, there is a such thing as artistic license. Take these excellent examples of aesthetic achievements as inspiration. If you were to recreate one of these programs at your library, it may not look exactly the same, and that's okay.
Um,
Feel
Fuzzy.
inspired by these examples. Take a piece from one and a color from another and create your own collage. Don't be afraid to whip up something new with an ingredient of another thing that was shown today. Before getting to the good stuff, I do have some housekeeping to go through. Please take this time right now to change your Zoom name to the name you used to register for today's program for easy attendance taking. That's first and last name, please. One of the easy ways to do this is to click the three dots on your small Zoom box and click Rename. Our presenters today will have a 5 to 10-minute block for their presentation. We also have time scheduled after each presentation for a Q&A from attendees. As someone is presenting, feel free to drop your question into the chat. But if you could, please start it with the letter Q so we know to come back to it. For our presenters, when you would like to advance the slide, just say, next slide. For timing purposes, please pay attention to our amazing paint pal, Katie, who will be holding up a 3, 2, and 1 minute warning sign. As a note, we will have breaks throughout our time together. This entire event will also be recorded. The videos will be shared at a later date. Now, grab your caboodle filled with crafty goodness, and let's get ready to make some masterpieces because it is time to hear from our incredible colleagues. So up first, we have Rachel Rusi from Myers Memorial Library, who is going to talk about their chalk contest. So let's get our screens shared and we'll begin.
Can everyone hear me?
Sure
Awesome.
can.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to share our summer reading chalk contest with you. We started this program 3 years ago and have continued to do it, and we have this year's planned already. I'm from Myers Memorial Library in Frewsburg, New York, which is way on the west side of the state. We're just outside of Jamestown, New York, and our town also borders Pennsylvania. So we're about an hour from Erie. We're an hour and a half south of Buffalo. We're a very small town library. And I put a couple pictures here of the outside of our building, but we have about, like, my kids go to the local school and we have about 60 kids per class. So if that kind of tells you the size of our town, it's pretty small, but we do a lot of really cool programs and we're excited to share with you. You can go to the next slide. All right, so these are just some of our Facebook promotional stuff for the last couple years. We've done this program as both a fundraiser for the library and just as a free program for people. So the first year we did it, we tied it into sign up for summer reading so they could come that day and also sign up. We charged $5 a square as a way to that year cover cost and raise a little money for the library. And so we had different categories. I know this is a children's idea, but we did this first year. Actually, every year we've done it as a multi-age program. So we had a child category, a teen category, an adult category, and then we had people vote for their best. With that $5, every person also got a free hot dog and a free drink. So it kind of covered that cost as well. But our theme for this year is Fields of Color, which we felt kind of fit the theme of the library. And I'll have pictures of each of the different themes coming up. But in the past, we've had about, I'd say 35 to 45 participants that have signed up for a square. We've also let people buy 2 squares if they're an artist that has a larger design they want to do. Go ahead, next slide. So the cost and supplies, we've used some of our funding to buy the chalk. As you can see, we've accumulated a lot of chalk. We've also gotten donations. So we've ordered the big boxes, but sometimes we have found in the past that certain colors, depending on your theme, will go a lot faster than others. So we've had to order boxes that are just like black chalk or white chalk for the mixing and stuff. We have also found that a lot of our more serious artists bring their own. And you have to think about too, like, are you okay with pastels? Because some people have asked if they could use pastels. And so that does last a little bit longer on the sidewalk chalk. So whether you own the sidewalk by your library or it's your town, you may want to ask, permission if that's okay, if it's there longer. And so that was one of the costs, was just the boxes of chalk. But we have some left over each year that then we kind of assess, okay, how much more do we think we need to buy? For the food, our board has always donated the hot dogs and the sodas and stuff like that. So that was really great. So that didn't cost us anything. But if you want to provide other foods, either for free or have the contest be free, but then, okay, you sell the hot dogs for, $1 or $2. That's an option as well. And then, of course, the prizes. We always want to give for this contest, we've always done some kind of prize for the winners. So we've done different things over the years. We've talked to local businesses in our town and seen if they could give us gift certificates. One year, the local ice cream place gave us a free coupon for ice cream for every participant that was there. So that was a really neat way to kind of bring the community into it as well. But we've also done t-shirts, water bottles, gift certificates to local bookstores or people, Amazon, whatever your library likes to do for prizes. Last year we even ordered like the t-shirt for that matched the theme for the summer, and we ordered it like a generic like large child, so that for our kids category they got to win that theme for like the library for the theme for that summer. So we got the t-shirt from the system that way. Next slide. For staff and volunteers, it definitely, you want to have a couple of staff there. Ahead of time, we did social media posts in advance, the month of, the week of, the day after. We got it in our local paper, so it's hard to see here, but those are a couple of different articles that were in the paper, and it was really cool. They were on like the physical paper. It was like large. They had pictures of all of our winners. So that was really neat to promote those artists and the library as well. Definitely you'll need someone to check in the different artists and assign them their squares. So we went around and we labeled all of the sidewalk squares with a number. And then also, like, if they were a child, we wrote a C. If they were a teen, we wrote a T. If they were an adult, we wrote an A. That way the judges and people too, as they were walking by, could see kind of the age of the participant. You can use a volunteer to do this. We have a really great board member who sat at the check-in desk, and she welcomed everybody, got kids signed up for summer reading. And then, of course, a judge. So finding out ahead of time who's going to judge your contest is really important. The first year we did it, our judge had sick kids and didn't show up. So we ended up having to judge it ourselves, which we weren't expecting. But it worked out and we were able to. We also have a people's choice every year, which was really fun. So we have making sure to have tickets available for that and getting people as they come to look at it, the different artists that they can vote for their favorite. So it was really fun to come up with the people's choice. And then we've always kind of worked that into, so like the people's choice, then if like that was the judge's first pick, we would have them pick their second pick. That way more people could get prizes. And then, of course, our board members volunteered to pass out the food so that our staff didn't have to worry about grilling the hot dogs and passing that out. But it's a great way to get your board members involved or other volunteers at your library. If you have a lot of staff, we only have 3 part-time staff at our library, so we would stretch ourselves pretty thin if we had to do it all. So we definitely use a lot of volunteers as needed. All right. And you can see here like the outside of our library. This was our ocean theme. It was Oceans of Possibility that year, so we decided to do an ocean theme. You can see the best drawing adult. He was a really talented artist, and he took out 2 squares and did this amazing octopus. That was by far one of my favorite chalks that we've ever had. But it was really neat to see just the different levels of artwork there. Perfect. Next slide. This was our Into the Woods theme. Kind of gives you a different idea of what kind of is possible, what your kids can come up with. Here, I tried to pick I believe these are all teen or child, except for the fox. But these ones I picked out to try to show you what some kids can really come up with. It's amazing what our children are capable of given the time. Now, some of these kids, for instance, the one with it's so this was Into the Woods, and that tall tree figure is from Lord of the Rings. She spent the whole day working on that, whereas some of the other kids who came maybe were just a couple. All right, next slide. This was our Once Upon a Time. Kind of gives you, I love how people come up with different ideas of what Once Upon a Time means. Next slide. All right, so some other things to consider. You can consider the safety. And so here, as you can see, we're right on the road. And so we had some of the cars and we put cones up to kind of block the traffic from pulling in right next to where our sidewalk was. Make sure you have a rain date location. We have so far, it's always been super hot. So having some pop-up tents or telling people to bring umbrellas for shade, for whatever reason, it's always super, super hot that day whenever we've done it. But it's a great way to have different things. And then also think about how you want to judge and the categories. Because if you're doing just a kids program, you definitely could do like, okay, we have our, our 5 to 7-year-olds and our 9 to 11-year-olds. We've just always kind of kept it child, teen, and adult. But next slide. All right. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you so much, Rachel. That is stunning. I love, love, love seeing that. We'll see if any questions pop up in the chat. But just as a note for everyone, thank you so much for those who got in a little late. We apologize for that. We had a little kerfuffle on the back end of Zoom, but it's going strong now. Please be sure to change your name. That way we can track you for attendance. And if you have a question, please drop it in the chat. I see a question that says, 4 hours for that contest? What's the timing on the day?
Yeah, so we had people start to register at 10 and then we closed it about at 1. And then we did awards either right at 1 or 1:30. Different years we've done it a little bit different. So definitely some of our artists, they come right at 10 and they use that entire 3 hours. Other kids, they show up at 11. We've had some families that they have stuff in the morning, so they come at noon and they start working. So we encourage people to come starting around like 12:30 or 1 to look and judge the art, like for picking their favorites. But we found that some people really did want to have that longer time period to work, especially if you invite some adult artists, they will take that 3 hours to do it.
I love
But
that
we have
dedication.
it is. And then if you do a kids one, you could definitely do a shorter time. But we found allowing them to stop by anytime between the 10 or if they show up at 11 or they show up, they have time then to do their artwork. And then some of the kids, they leave and then they can come back to see like at the end of the day for the awards.
That's great. So we have 2 questions here that are sort of about theme. So Gretchen wants to know, how far in advance do you choose the theme? And then Susan asks, do you encourage book themed drawings with the kids?
Okay, that's a great question. So we've left it up to the artists. We've talked about doing like Into the Woods. We kind of would do it or Once Upon a Time. So we've got some kind of book themes. We don't want to limit them too much, but you totally could say, okay, let's see your best like children book cover. If they want to pick your favorite book character, you definitely could pick that as a theme. We start planning summer reading usually in January. We start calling our different program people to get stuff scheduled and booked. So we've picked our theme this year is the Fields of Color. So we'll see what people do with that. You want to kind of focus them, but not too much. And then when we judge, like we've had kids sometimes, they've drawn SpongeBob SquarePants, which may not fit the theme unless you're doing Oceans of Possibility. And there's, so when we do the awards, we try to like, whichever one best fits the theme, but really whatever they want to do. But you totally could say, the chalk contest is favorite storytime character or favorite book cover, however you want to do it. And I did see one about labeling. Yes, we labeled our squares with a C for child, a T for teen, and an A for adult. And when they got there, sometimes we let them pick which square they wanted because not all squares are exactly the same size. And where they were located. Some people wanted to be like, we had one year where she had her toddler with her and our husband and 2 grandparents, so she wanted a spot that had a bench near it. So they can kind of pick where they want to be next to a friend as they're doing it. So we had the squares labeled and then we would kind of go in order, but if they said, hey, I want this square, we would write them down
Get
there.
on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Mm. So that's nice. There's some freedom there. They're not locked into a square, especially if they want to do it with a friend or something like that.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And then, so as far as the setup in the morning, how early are you and your colleagues getting there to set up for the day? Oh, Rachel, you're muted. Sorry.
Um, we usually get there about 9:15 when it starts at 10. So not super early. Because and that's a good question. We have taken pre-registration in the past, especially when we charged the $5. That way we kind of knew how many to expect. But now that it's been an ongoing program, we've just had them register the day of. So we've done it both ways. And now some people they already have seen it on Facebook, they're interested, and so they've already called and say, "Hey, I'm coming this year." But it just,
That's so exciting.
yeah.
Jackie wants to know, do you advertise the theme ahead of time?
We do. It's actually our theme. It's already on Facebook as an event with the theme. And then we'll put it in the newspaper with the theme included. Usually, we try to submit it like maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. And then it just depends on when they run it. But it's usually like a little blurb. But we put it again. We try to do stuff with events a month ahead of time, the week of, the day of, you know.
Yeah. And
Unless
then
it's
Tammy,
pre-registration, and then we bump that back to whenever the registration is due. Yeah.
that makes sense. Tamily asks, do you think chalkboard paint on cardboard would work as an alternative if sidewalks aren't available?
Oh, that's a great idea. That's also something that they could do ahead of time on home at home and then bring it in and judge it that way. So you definitely could adapt this any way you want. Um, and then those could last a little bit longer. We, for whatever it is, it's always been super hot and super sunny on all of our chalk contest days. And then we'll do it on a Saturday, and then sure enough, Sunday or Monday it rains and it's gone. So what we have done is we've taken pictures of every square and we've put them on our Facebook page or our website so that people can see them, right after. Yeah.
I picture you all very dramatically standing in the library windows watching the chalk wash
Yes.
away all the arts going
Yeah.
away.
And it's kind of fun to see which ones last longer than others. Like if they have used some pastel paint, there's like the outlines of the things. And yeah, it's so sad when they do wash away.
It does sound sad, but it sounds delightful as it's actually happening.
Yeah.
So Rachel, thank you so much for taking time today to share this awesome chalk contest. I love seeing that. And maybe just keep an eye on the chat in case other questions pop up.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Okay, everyone. So feel free to drop more questions in the chat. Rachel said that they are going to stick around and answer some more questions. Again, thank you all so much for being here. We're going to move on to our next presentation. So let's welcome Kathy Backhor, who is from the New City Library. So Kathy, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I guess I'm on now. This program is called Kids Create, and then you put the artist name at the end. For example, I have Klimt, O'Keeffe, and Picasso there. And you could put the next slide. You can use materials that you have kicking around, tempera paint, brushes, colored pencils, crayons, chalk, etc. And then you think about who you want to present to the kids. Next slide. All right, you need to find a good space to create. This is a photo of the Jackson Pollock program that I do. And you can see that we need to be outside because it's a mess and the kids love flinging the paint all over the place. The way I get the paint containers is I ask the staff if they have yogurt containers or applesauce or something. They can just donate those to me. I'll rinse them out and use those for the paint. Next slide. And then I can use teen volunteers for a lot of these projects because they do need their service hours. They can help the kids put the projects together. They can distribute paint and supplies. They can prepare stuff, which sometimes is kind of time consuming. You can see the O'Keeffe flowers there. It takes a lot of cutting, or at least cutting part of it so that the kids who attend the program aren't struggling with that the whole time. The programs are generally 45 minutes to an hour or so. And generally, we have a pretty good attendance. Sometimes there'll be only 5 or 6 kids. Other times there'll be 35 people. It varies greatly. You could put the next slide up. All right, so there's the O'Keeffe flowers on the left as finished work. And then on the right, I have the Scream. There's an open book with a copy of the original artwork. And then I did an interpretation. And then you can see on the lower right, one of the kids' interpretations of this painting. It's kind of fun to see what they come up with. Sometimes there's a big smiley face, or there's a mouse on the ground, or something like that. All right, so let's see. Yeah, now the thing with the showing the artist's work, you have to be aware that some artists do PG-13, shall I say, and up types of works. So you want to be careful that you're not going, oh, here, and having the children going, oh, what's that? So that's just something to keep in mind with your art books. You could show the next slide. Okay, on the left, we have Surat, and he's easy to remember, Surat the Dot. What I do is print out some outlines on cardstock. That way the paint doesn't wrinkle up the paper so much, so they can have a nice piece when they leave. And you can see how they can do the gradient shading. We use Q-tips and temper paint. Very simple, not expensive. In the center, there's a young lady's interpretation of a Pollock work. This I did, I think, during COVID or during our remodel or something, but at a local park, and there were a lot of people that day that really enjoyed it. With like a Pollock program, you might want to have a rain date if you need one. And then on the right is Banksy. He's an artist who does kind of hidden graffiti type of stuff with stencils. So we made Banksy Valentines. I used cardboard because I thought that kind of looked like a building. And the kids did stenciling with little doilies, and I bought a couple of stencils, and they blobbed the paint around. And then when they were leaving, I said, now make sure you put this somewhere where the person it's for wouldn't expect to find it. So I don't know what they did with that, but it was kind of a fun thing to tell them to do. You could do the next slide. All right, everybody knows this guy. And what I do here is print out the soup cans on cardstock, and the kids can make whatever kind of soup name they want. They do rainbow soup or question marks all over the label. And I think they kind of get the idea of the repetition, but using different colors.
Why do we know this guy?
Accents. Sorry? Did someone ask a question?
I think that was an accidental unmute.
Oh, okay. All right, so we covered Warhol. Next. All right, and here is The Kiss by Klimt. This one takes a little longer to prep because what I do is look through magazines that the library is discarding and look for romantic couple faces, you know. And I try to have different ages and different skin tones and black and white or color or whatever I can find. And the only prep I do is just to glue those onto the center of half a sheet of oak tag. And then I have glitter paint and markers and, you know, whatever scraps of nice looking paper I can find. And the kids just kind of go to town with that, and they seem to enjoy that one too. Okay, and the next slide. All right, here we have the O'Keeffe flowers. You can see there's teens on the left there helping. And in the center is our actual artist's rendering that the kids are inspired by. And then on the left, you can see, on the right, I'm sorry, you can see some semi-finished products. And those were fun because the same year I did that, we had a Wizard of Oz program. It was the something anniversary of the Wizard of Oz. And we decorated the room with some of the poppies. So it was kind of fun to do that. And then the next slide. And here we have Picasso. This is brown paper grocery bags. Luckily, I had been doing my shopping locally, and one of the teens was there, and I said, "Oh, can I have a few extra bags?" I still have all those bags, or many of the bags left. But it's art chalk, pastel chalks, which might be a little costly, but they will last for a long time, and it gives a good result. And combined with some markers, you can see my subject in the middle there really got the whole idea of the whole thing. It even matches her pants. I really love that photo. And then, of course, we have the real Picasso on the right. Next. Okay, here's a list of suggested materials that I used for these different projects. You can also do Matisse. You can do, any artist that you're interested in showing the kids their work. And you can adapt that to your age groups that you're interested in. I do 7 to 12. If you want to do younger, you could have simpler projects. If you want to do tweens, you could have them a little more complicated. A good source is the internet. And just saying, art projects for kids and put in the artist's name, and some interesting things will come up. You can go to the next page. There's more suggestions for this, the artists, and I tried to detail what I had done, what I had shown you today. And then on my last slide is my favorite comparison. Isn't that great? That was the same day that we used the park for the project, but I just was really struck by how similar this young man was approaching his work of art as the actual artist. So I guess I was kind of quick, but that was my project, and I hope you liked it.
Kathy, that was perfect. And I think we're all feeling so inspired by these little artists really expressing themselves. It's so wonderful. We had a few questions in the chat. Someone
Sure.
said, I love the flower project. Can you share the directions for that one? So would you be willing to share that with us?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's construction paper. The red is the petals, obviously, and then you can use an AccuCut to cut out a big circle for the center, and then a bigger circle for the yellow. And the thing that's tricky about the petals is the kids have to fold it a certain way so that it'll angle up. So that you might need the teens to help with. That's a good example of the teens being helpful.
So do you have all the pieces cut out already, and then the teens are helping them put it together and fold?
Well, I try not to have everything cut out already. Some of it may be started, like the flower petals, I'll do a loop, and then the kids have to cut in the individual serrations, because I want them to have the process of creating the piece and not just have everything there and glue it together, you're done, It's more the process than the product.
Absolutely. And then someone asked, what's the name of the artist for the flowers? Was that O'Keefe?
That was O'Keefe, yeah, George O'Keefe, yeah.
Great. Someone asked, did you water down the paint for the Pollock event?
No, it was temper
Nope.
paint. Nope, nope.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I love the sustainability aspect of it, where you were asking your colleagues for yogurt containers and things like that.
Yes.
I think that's such a great idea.
Oh, sure. They're all happy to do something like that to recycle things and help the
Yeah.
programs.
And then I had a question. So you said that you can get anywhere from like 5 to 35 kids in attendance. Are you
Yeah.
doing pre-registration for that? Or are
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Pollock, I don't worry so much because it's just a big piece of poster board and a yogurt cup with some paints, and so if more people come than you've prepared for, it's generally not a problem. But yeah, I do have a registration because some of the things you have to have the right amount of supplies,
Right.
definitely to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah had asked, do you do this program as a series throughout the summer, or is this something you pick 1 to 2 artists a year?
Well, I've done it different ways. It depends on the time of year because a lot of kids in that age range are in sports or they have religious classes to go to, theater group, whatever, blah, blah. So I try to put it in where I think the kids won't be too busy. So
Yeah,
sometimes I'll do it a quarter. I'll do 3 programs, one each month and see how that goes. And then sometimes it's, once a month, sometimes it's twice a year. It just depends on what's happening in the community.
sure. So it can be a mini series if it seems
Yeah,
to be working that
yep,
way.
yep.
Someone asked, do you find the registration is affected by the artists that you choose?
That's a good question. I don't really see a correlation. Pollock is always big, though, I have to say. Once word got out what that is, they all come to that.
Yeah, I kind of want to do that. I want to go throw some paint at some poster board. That sounds like a good time to me.
It is. And at the end of the day, the kids' legs are covered with paint. One time there was a young man who was flinging the paint and he had a big stripe across the back of his
Oh,
head.
no.
And it was just great. They have a good, I always stress wear old clothes. Don't look dress fancy because you're going to be a mess. But it's
Yeah,
washable. Yeah.
there might have to be some ponchos involved maybe in the
Yes,
future.
exactly.
Someone asked, what do you do for an introduction to the program? How much time do you spend talking about the artist?
Okay. I spend, maybe 5 minutes showing them some works of art. Sometimes I'll print out the different artists' work and have them in an acrylic on the tables around the room. Uh, Also, something I forgot to mention, I generally have music playing if it's indoors,
Hmm.
music that the artist may have heard while they were living in that time period that they're from. So just to kind of let kids' brains have music going while they're creating.
An immersive experience. They're becoming those artists.
Yes,
That's so
right,
cool.
right, yeah.
And then Sherry asks, is it a one-time program or do you do it weekly?
It weekly is too frequently for how many programs we do here. I wouldn't be able to fit it in. The most I've done it is once per month. So, and that's when I get the best attendance. If you have it every week, then, people will say, oh, it'll be next week. I won't come now. So that's
Yeah,
the way it's
sure.
been working. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we are just at time. Kathy, I thank you so, so much for sharing this really inspirational program with us. I think we're going to have budding Pollocks and
Oh, yes.
all New York State now.
That's certainly the funnest one.
Yeah, yeah. So
Thank you.
everyone cover your program rooms with tarp if you don't have an outdoor area.
Yeah.
All right, Kathy, thank you so much.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye. All right, everyone, let's move on to our next presenters. We now have Andrew Ross and Cheryl Smith with their Ready, Set, Grow program, and they are from the New Hartford Public Library.
Hello there.
Hi,
I'm Andrew
friends.
Ross. I am the director of the New Hartford Public Library.
And I'm Cheryl Smith, and I'm the children's programmer.
Next slide, please. Oh, one more. All right, there we go. All right, we are part of the Mid-York Library System. We're located in Central New York. We are a municipal library, so our funding is never really constant, and that can be a big issue with our programs. We have 15 staff members, 13 part-timers, including Cheryl, who does her amazing work within a part-time work week, and 2 full-time staff members. Our library, a while ago, I should say, was given a gift to build or create this garden that has become a centerpiece of our library throughout all the seasons, and it's been a focal point. And we felt that this was a great way to have a summer program that introduced gardening to children and hopefully install a love of nature at that age. It's also fit the STEAM bill as well. And it allowed children to kind of have an investment or a sense of ownership and pride in our garden. Next slide, please.
Okay, so how I started this, we had these two, if you see on the bottom, there's these two garden boxes that our garden was using, but they were very falling apart. They were kind of getting old. And I went to Anne and I was just like, hey, we need some to do something with this. Can we use them? And she was all on board. So I came up with the idea of using those two garden boxes to create a children's garden for our library. We got them painted. We got them all bedded, redid dirt, made it beautiful. And then I became a gridding process for it to see what we can include in our summer programming between July 8th and August 12th for every Monday program. Next slide. And as you can see here is our rough timeline. You can see I made a rough grid of how it would before planting. So like our first week, we would have these, and then the other one I had wild seeds, so we could just plant seeds. Other times the gardener would bring us flowers and we could talk about them. It was all very up in the arms of what we were brought, given what we had, what we could talk about. Some hiccups we had, which I was not expecting because we had such a big age range of kids from preschools to tweens, and we had such a massive turnout. I was thinking maybe 10 kids tops. We had like 20 to 30 kids every week. And we had only these two boxes. So instead, this grid format went out the window. If you can see, there's a nice grid. You can go to the next slide. We can go through these flowers real quick. So we just planted them anywhere. And then in the upcoming, after the program, I would get some of the older kids that were 10, 11, 12, after some of the little preschoolers left, dig up all the flowers and put them in a nice coordinated way. That way we had room for our next Monday. Next slide. And this is just more descriptions on what we did for each week, the different flowers, what we did, that we weeded, we watered, we planted. Sometimes our flowers didn't come in exactly at our time slot that our program was, which gave me a little bit of anxiety, but we worked with it because I was just like, okay, our gardener's on our way. Let's wait for them. You know what we're going to do? We're going to weed the stuff. We're going to find rocks. And we found slugs. We found spiders. And this is a big one. If you don't like insects, you're gonna hold them. They will put them in your hand and you got to act like you're cool with it. Next slide is more flowers. If you go on to the next one for the rest of, there we go. And this we're going right to our.
Yep, I'll
budget.
take over from here. But one thing to note on the previous slides too, each week we had like gardening books available as well for adults and children. So we kind of worked our collection into this program as well. All right, next slide, please. So we, as I mentioned, funding is always an issue. We did apply for a grant from our local community foundation and received $600 to run this program. So they definitely helped us out. And the great news with this program is once we purchased all the supplies, going forward, all we'll ever need to purchase here on out are the flowers and the seeds, or if anything, gets basic wear and tear, we can replace it. This allowed us to have some community partners, and there were some ripple effects of this program as well. As I mentioned, the garden was always a focal point, but it kind of got renewed interest. So our friends group does our fundraising, and they actually, because there was this new interest in the library, coming after that program, the gardener divided the plants and sold them off to people, and it was a fundraiser, so everyone could have, those that purchased it, I should say, could have a part of our garden in their own gardens. They also did garden talks through this, so it was nice to see a little ripple effect from that. Next slide, please. So that $600 went pretty fast. This is everything we purchased. I did do a QR code there, so you could exactly see what we purchased on Amazon, but it was child-sized gardening tools, watering cans, aprons, the plants and seeds that we needed. We did purchase notebooks so kids could record the growth of their flowers. We purchased large storage bins to store all of these things. And we purchased, I believe, 2 garden carts so Cheryl could easily pull out all of the materials for the kids each week. Next slide, please. All right. We kind of went quick, but if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. Let's see.
Such a stunning garden. So great. And so, yeah, we have a question. Did you use seeds or already grown flowers that you were transplanting?
Both. So the first week that we did, we ended up doing wildflower seeds while we were still waiting on our determining what flowers we'll get for the rest of the year or the summer. So we did our seeds. We did those very first. We talked about the wildflower seeds that are specific to our area, so that will can grow, and what deer won't eat. That was a big factor too. We had to make sure deer weren't going to get them. And then every week we'll talk about our little seeds, and we'll bring a little ruler and we'll measure it out to see where they are. Make sure we're not going to weed those. Like we put like a little tape around that area. We're not going to weed those. Those aren't weeds. Those are our flowers. So we made sure they're so good. But we did start with seeds, and every week before we transplanted the other flowers that would check our seed growth and our wildflowers.
We have another question. How did you tackle when growth rates didn't overlap with the program?
We broke out a little bit.
Oh, can you repeat that question? I'm sorry, we broke up.
Yeah, sure. No worries. How did you tackle when growth rates didn't overlap with programming?
Well, actually, it was all part of the discussion. Obviously, things aren't going to grow rapidly, and it led itself to that discussion that, the elements, let's say, it was really a dry summer.
It was a very nice summer.
So, that would affect it. And it just led to more dialogue and talking about, the plant growth rate and whatnot. So we one thing we've learned with programming, I should say, probably Cheryl's learned quicker than I have, that you have to be able to pivot things. And so, if there wasn't a lot of growth to measure, it led to discussions.
I also have this very, very old, very dirty book that it shows like growth rate of flowers specifically, and it shows the dirt underneath, so the rooting system of what we can't see. So that was a big one. Unfortunately, I didn't bring it here, but it's awfully muddy now, so it's not part of our collection, but it's part of our reference book for our program.
See, it always comes back to books, even if they're old. We need
Exactly.
books to help us.
Exactly.
And then it's so funny because I actually wrote the word pivot down, which I think was so key, because you had even said you weren't expecting 20 to 30 kids each time. So when did you realize that you needed to kind of maybe take things in a new direction?
Very first day.
That's why I did seeds the first week, because I didn't know what the turnout was going to be.
And also it was a lot of siblings too. So, we purchased, I believe, 15 of each item, I believe we purchased.
Yep.
So there was, and that led to, sharing.
Yes.
The discussions of sharing. So there are little life lessons throughout this whole thing, but it was some siblings that came. So, and parents did stay so they could help monitor, and, now it's your brother's turn, your sister's turn type thing. So we just went with it, which I think children's programmers often do.
Swing it.
Yeah, I like building the very important life lessons into there, sharing and working together. And then I was wondering about the actual raised flower beds. I saw that they were painted. Did the kids do that? Did the staff do that? Who took that on?
We're trying to get teens to come in, so we're hoping this summer we'll have our teens update our painter boxes. So we got them painted by the gardener, painted them for us. And then this upcoming summer, we're hoping to get our teens to help a mini program before the garden starts up, for like little kid handprints on it, and have teen designs all over the garden boxes. So hopefully that turns out for this upcoming summer.
Oh, that would be so delightful. Come on, teens, get in there for those community service hours.
Here,
oh,
volunteers,
good.
So we're lucky.
Melissa asks, is this a program that you are planning on repeating every year?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a great turnout and great way to introduce the kids to gardening.
And now, as far as that $600 grant that you got, will you be applying for another one, do you think, or are you being supported just through like a friend of the library at this point?
At this point, it'll be supported through the library. Part of that Lolly Garden Fund that we have, our garden that's named that, has money built into it. So all of our flowers and seeds can be purchased through that fund. So everything that we have purchased last year is good to go. So this should not really cost us much more. So I won't be applying for another grant for this.
That's great. Right. Obviously, there's reusable tools and things like that. That's such a
Yes.
good point. Michelle asks, do you ever encourage the children to plant at home to match what they're doing at the library?
Yes, we do. We talk about this like every garden club. So when we have the sources for it, we actually do a lot of planning with like little take-home plants. And our very last garden club, the gardener brought like large plants. I was not expecting, I was thinking little samplings, but they brought large plants for the kids to take home for their own garden that match our garden. It was great. They were so excited.
That's wonderful. I like them walking home being like,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
parents, we
It
have
was
to
big.
plant this now. Sydney asks, have you ever considered a vegetable or herb garden as a continuation?
That's the first thing I wanted to do, and we discussed it wasn't a good idea in our area just because we have such a high deer, raccoon, like a lot of wild animals. I talked it over with the gardener, and he says, with especially deers carry ticks, and we want people to enjoy our garden. We don't want the wildlife to eat it, and we have
Yeah.
to really think of. We have some higher raised ones we talked about, but it's an ongoing battle with deer.
Sure, sure. But the slugs and spiders are there to stay. There's
They
nothing we
they
can.
they live there. We can't.
The kids love them.
That's right.
Oh, well, this is such a beautiful project. I love how many folks were invested in it and took part in it. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I'm excited to hear. I hope I get to hear about how it continues growing over the coming years. Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you for taking time today to chat with us.
You're welcome.
All right. So we are on to our final presentation of our first hour. Yes, not of the day, just our first hour. So we will have Deborah Kinirons from Uniondale Public Library, who will be talking about incorporating programming book displays from the Spanish language manual. So we'll get Deborah up here on the screen.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I'm also the Spanish Manual Chair for CSLP. And so I'm going to talk about the Spanish language content in the manual and how you can incorporate it. So the Spanish manual, for those of you who are not familiar, the Spanish content is actually incorporated into the manual. It's throughout the manual. Next slide. So at the beginning of the manual, there's information about best practices and for bilingual story times. And that is followed by, next slide. And that is followed by best practices for Spanish bilingual programming. And that's for all ages. So for teens, multi-generational programs, and also for adults. Next slide. And there's information on best practices for outreach. And the next, yep. And the next slide. And then the next slide is information about dispelling myths about raising bilingual children. And there's it's been translated into Spanish, so you can give that to your patrons, your families. So the next thing, yeah, and here we have the scavenger hunt. So the scavenger hunt has been translated. I don't know about you guys, but every month in our children's room, we have a new scavenger hunt, and the kids absolutely love doing scavenger hunt. So you could have this out all summer. This could absolutely be a family activity. And I really like that it's about books. You know, you have to find a book with with different characteristics. And towards the end of the manual are the printables. So you'll see that the printables, the registration forms have been translated into Spanish for children and teens. The bookmarks have also been translated into Spanish. And I'm going to show you some of them. I have to say, I absolutely love the art this year. I love the colors. Yep, so these are the registration forms in Spanish. And the reading logs and the book reviews. Those are for teens. And the book list. So if you're familiar, I didn't talk about this, but in the manual, the book lists, the books in Spanish that are available in Spanish in the different chapters are in the chapters, but there's also a book list at the end, and it indicates whether the book is bilingual, if it's just in Spanish. And I've highlighted that in red so you can get an idea of where to see that, where you can see that. And I also want to mention that the poster, slogan, artwork, and PowerPoint slides have also been translated. So you can use that in your promotion. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for sharing that, Deborah. I was just curious. So, as far as making the Spanish language materials, are you waiting for the set of materials that are made in English first to then be translated in Spanish? How did that working process go?
The SLP does it all. So, I mean, from we get deliverables, what certain, like a certain number of books, a certain number of songs that to go into the manual. And so they're incorporated. And then they actually have a professional translator translate things. And then sometimes if there's something about they will come to myself. And, so I'll put it out to the Spanish Manual Committee also. And we've also expanded the manual. So now there's book lists for adults as well. But aside, while we're here, if anybody ever has any suggestions for Spanish language content in the manual, please reach out to me.
Thank you for that, Deborah. And then I'm just curious, just for anyone in this meeting, what is one of the top things you think that they should be sharing with their Spanish language patrons from the CSLP manual?
I mean, I think that the bingo is a great activity. I think that also the fact that the sign up has been translated into Spanish.
Yeah, it's incredible. What a great resource. Thank you so much. All right, so I think that's all we have for questions, but Deborah, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to share this great part of the manual with our attendees. We really appreciate it. All right, folks, that ends the first hour of our Children's Collaborative Summer Reading Workshop. We are going to take a small break. Please be back here at 10:30 for some transition fun. We'll see you then.
Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can get this guy sharing properly here. Oops. Can everybody see my screen? Are we seeing it? Yes. Okay, great. Well, welcome to Transition Fun. I have to duck down here so you can see that I am representing the color blue. But what we're going to do today to transition back into our wonderful presentations is to do a little passive programming. Everybody likes to have some passive programming in their libraries. And so this one is a really great fun thing for you to do. You can do this in your library and have this up and see what these kids are going to find out for these Rebus puzzles. So we're going to do some Rebus puzzles together as we get ready to transition back in. I'm going to just make my screen because I can't see the chat. Okay, there we go. So this is the first one. If you think you know what it could be, definitely put it in the chat to see what you think it might be. I see a bunch of people answering. You ready? Here's the answer. Oops, I went too far. Scrambled eggs. All right, how about this one? This is the next one. Put in the chat. I tried to pull some color ones. That's a little hint there. Give everybody a second to think about it. All right, I'm seeing some green with envies. Are you green with envy? Because some people are in warm weather and we're not, but that's okay because summer is coming. Here we go. All right, green with envy. Let's try the next one. This one might be a little more difficult. Oh, you guys are so good. I did this with my colleagues and they couldn't get it. So I am impressed. You are in trouble. All right, you ready to try the next one? Here we go. This one is a little bit more tricky. Oh, I see some argument going between I fell down and Eiffel Tower. You who said Eiffel Tower? It is correct. Nice job. All right, are we ready for another one? This one again, but you guys are so good. You're probably getting it. Guesses on this one? I see somebody put it in. Yes, for once in my life. 1, 2, 3, 4 ones. Ba-dum-bum. All right, one more. Let's go. What do you think? This is something I think we all wish we could be doing. Traveling overseas. Good job, everybody. Very nice. Okay, let's see. What's the next one? This one. Try to understand. Nice job. And you can see that these are nice and colorful. So these would make a great rotating program in your libraries. You can do ones that are for kids. This was actually, I found on the Reader's Digest page. So they had a really great bunch of them. This one goes kind of along with our last program presentation. Yeah, greenhouse. I've seen a lot of greenhouses. Very nice. Okay, let's see the next one. All right. This one is not what you think it is. I promise. We're still in a kid's presentation.
Michelle, you're ending us on a hard one here.
I know. Let's see. Anybody else kind of want to venture a guess? Pink pony, very cute. I love that. There, I see the answer. Catherine, good job. Win with ease. Nice work, everybody. You guys did so fabulous. That was great. So if anybody needs any of these, I could sneak one more in. What do you think? One more quick one. Anybody have a guess? Think about where the butt is. Kids would love that. Think about where the butt is. How about, but on second thought? But on second thought, it's time for our second hour, I think, right? Is that right, LJ? Are we ready to go?
It is. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Michelle, for that transition fun and all those great puzzles.
Stop sharing. All right. Thanks, guys. It was great to see everybody. And if you need that, this presentation, I can share that as well. Just let me know.
All right. Thank you again. Before we get to our first presenter, just a few reminders for everyone. I'm LJ Martin, your second hour MC. I'm from the Chautauqua Cattaraugus Library System. If you're just joining us, please remember to change your name to your first and last name for registration purposes so we can get you the credit you need. If you are asking questions in the chat, just a quick reminder to put a letter Q in front of the question so our background team can find those quickly for us. Presenters, just remember to say next slide. And again, our background staff will enhance the PowerPoint for you. And then Katie, our wonderful timekeeper over here with the green paintbrush, she'll be holding up when we're getting to the end of the time. So those are just the quick reminders that I have. I'm really excited. We have a full packed second hour, and Kate Miller is going to start us off with talking about Messtival, and she's from the David A. Howe Public Library. So Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, LJ, for that introduction. As she said, my name is Kate Miller. I am the children's librarian at the wonderful David A. Howe Public Library. This is a picture of me standing on our main circulation desk during our pirate party because why not, you know? And just for funsies, this is a picture of our cat, David A. Meow, on the bottom, and our pet bearded dragon, Spike, on the top. A picture of our beautiful library in the center. We serve a population size of about 4,500 in the village, and in the broader town, it equals about 7,000. That doesn't always tell me a whole lot, so I'll kind of throw back to the first presenter who said, you know, we graduate classes of about 70-ish around here. So it's not a huge area either. We are a couple hours also south of Buffalo, Rochester, that direction. So we're pretty rural. We're very lucky to have a big, beautiful library, but we're still in a pretty rural, small area. Okay, next slide, please. Today I'm going to kind of give you a run through about a Messtival, which is just kind of messy, sensory fun. Next slide, please. So a Messtival is a combination of art, sensory, play, and fun in one big, messy festival, a Messtival. Imagine kiddie pools full of oobleck, mud, shaving cream, Insta-Snow. You can offer paint, brushes, and other non-brush tools to create and explore all of these wonderful textures and art ideas. It gives patrons a chance to create art in various new ways through individualized experiences. And it gives us an excuse to just make a mess for the fun of it, because why not? Next slide, please. So there are usually two general approaches to a Messtival, but that doesn't mean that you can't lump it all into one giant program. There's an art side where you can make collaborative creations, such as, you know, having all of the participants put a painty handprint onto a canvas that you can then display in your library, or they can, you know, use or they can make individual creations where participants can use things like feathers, monster trucks, fly swatters, cotton balls, to literally just throw paint onto their own canvas, or even a piece of paper as well. And this is obviously the time to enjoy process art, because there's no way you will get an individual end product here. This is just about the exploration. For the sensory side, you can really focus more on the tactile and gross motor concept. So you can throw painty cotton balls, or you can literally let the kids roll in paint. Who cares, right? Like, this is just all out, all senses paint, art exploration. And, you know, if you've got like a mud kitchen or something like that, you can just use the sensory side with all of those different textures and things like that. Next slide, please. Here are some pictures of programs that I've done before that kind of have the same Messtival kind of feel. On the left, we have a young man who is doing some archery painting. That one was super fun. I think I got the archery set from Amazon for maybe 15 bucks for a couple of different bows. And they've got suction cup arrows. You just dip them in the paint, pull back and let it fly. I used a roll of paper and just put that over top of like a 6-foot table that I set on its side and let them go to town. The top center picture, literally just let kids walk through paint and then across paper. They loved it. I loved it. Honestly, it was so much fun. I tried to hang on to one of the big rolls of paper to hang up and display, but they kind of got carried away and it was all ripped by the end we were done. It was fun though. It was a lot of fun. The bottom center is the end product of using monster truck tires, like the little, like Gravedigger and the little Hot Wheels size ones. That's always a big hit with toddlers in my experience, but I have never had anybody have a bad time with it. And then on the right is just kind of another like process art sensory kind of thing where we had a bunch of different sized circles and they were just going to town stamping with those. So those are just like some general messy art ideas that I've done in the past as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for myself, it took me about an hour to do some general planning. And really most of that was just deciding, okay, here are the things that I would like to do in our messy art sensory kind of day and deciding what I would need, things like that. It really, I mean, it can take a lot less time if you want to make it smaller, depending on your staff and your library, things like that. Prep time, I am guessing, to gather everything up and around and get it set out, probably an hour or a little better. I would run this as a 2-hour program at least, and what I call like a come and go style. So, if you just want to stop by for 15 minutes and roll in the paint, cool. If you want to spend the whole 2 hours exploring every inch of everything, you can do that too. And cleanup time, I approximate, would take essentially forever. Much like anytime you use glitter, I'm just imagining oobleck and shaving cream in the grass for days. So that's about how that would go. So a couple of things that I wanted to keep in mind when I was planning this was scaling, because we're very fortunate. We have a huge front yard that wow, I'm going to have to cruise. Okay. That we have a huge front yard that we can really utilize great. So, but I've also worked in a library where we didn't own any property around the library. So scaling is a big deal. Instead of being able to, do it all out in the front yard and make a huge mess, you could always just scale down and do things indoors with a lot of tarps and washable materials. Another thing that I wanted to keep in mind was something that, you could use for a Messtival is food products. But I know that if we're keeping in mind anybody who's maybe suffering from food insecurity, you don't have to use food products. Absolutely. But, a couple of workarounds to that might be if you can contact your local grocery store and you're like, hey, if you've got any Jello or frosting or things like that that are going to be expiring that you can't sell, would you possibly donate them for this program? And then it's not being wasted, it's being reused in a way. And same thing, like if you've got farmers or if you've got folks who grow berries or anything like that, and they're like, man, this whole bucket was just, it's too ripe, or we've got an overabundance. Let them smash them. Let the kids smash berries. Like, how much fun would that coloring be? Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to try to cruise. Oh, this is easy enough. So these are just tools. A couple of the bigger ones that you're probably going to want on hand, like I said, are tarps. I'm imagining kiddie pools. If that doesn't work for your size, then always, totes or bins, something like that. A drop cloth, roll of paper, some dirt or mud. Next slide, please. And these are just some smaller ideas. Cornstarch, I'll explain the pricing on that one in a minute. Insta Snow, shaving cream, paint brushes, non-brush items, which could be, as shown in the picture, sponges, fly swatters, monster trucks, feathers, leaves, flowers. If you've got some trees hanging around your yard, grab leaves off of them and use that to paint. Next slide, please. Okay, before you come at me, I know $300 for this sounds crazy, but I started compiling my research assuming that you would start with nothing, that you would not have anyone that could just give you a bag of dirt. You know, like there are a lot of things in this list that you may already have or that you could acquire for free. And so that's another reason why I included these suggestions here for people that you could possibly partner with too. Do you know a restaurant owner in town that's always been really helpful? Maybe they would donate a industrial sized bag of cornstarch so you can make a kiddie pool full of oobleck, as a thought. Or, if you are a staff of one at a very small library, do you have a friend who's really handy who maybe has a couple of tarps that you can just be like, can I borrow this and then spray it down and give it back to you? I feel like typically if you are doing something like this for the kiddos in your community will want to help you. If they see that you're passionate about doing something big and fun and just kind of crazy, they're gonna wanna be there for you. So that and that's not always. I do know that,
All
but
right, Kate,
that's
I'm going to stop
kind
you.
of
Is
the
there
idea.
any one last important thing before we have quite a few questions that have come in? I want
I
to
think
give.
that covers it. That should do it. Yes.
Okay,
And there's my contact information.
perfect. Such a great idea, and I'm sure all the kids love it here. The first question that came in is, is this a name you came up with, or is it a trademark program?
I don't think it's trademarked, but I will say that this is something that I've definitely like ripped off and duplicate kind of idea. I've
Mhm.
seen it a handful of different times, mostly on like Facebook library groups, like the programming librarian page and things like that. And I just thought that it made so much sense with this year's summer reading program. So I don't think it's trademarked, but I have
Okay,
seen it out there before. I did not come up with it.
that's great. That's what we do in this profession is we
That's
borrow and make our
right.
own. Do you provide the kids any way to clean up before they get back into their caregivers' vehicles?
I mean, we have a hose. No, but I try to keep paper towels, baby wipes, things like that on hand, but I do always use the term dress for a mess. And
Mhm.
for this one, I would definitely be like maybe even bring some towels to sit on when you get back in the car, something like that.
Makes sense. The next question is what are they doing the footprints on?
It was just like a big roll of like butcher paper kind of thing, craft paper. I didn't have anything under it, which maybe if I had a long thing of cardboard or something like that, it could have given it more support so it wouldn't have ripped. But we just
Mhm.
rolled it out in the grass and let them go. It was more of an
Perfect.
experience thing than a product.
All right, I'm gonna get to one more question, and there's a few more coming in chat if you want to get to those a little bit later.
Yep, I'll be in. I can always pop over and answer them too.
Perfect, thank you. The last question here is what type of paint was used for the rolling in or the footprints?
Just washable. I usually use washable Crayola,
Okay.
because I feel like that's the best washable. I don't feel like all
Mhm.
the washable ones really wash out all the time, but I think Crayola is about the best.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for telling us about this program. A lot of good feedback in the chat already, and a couple more questions that Kate here will answer. Can't wait to hear more of these programs happening this summer.
Thank you guys.
All right, we're going to move on to Art Adventures. This is by Eileen Madden from the Oceanside Library. So I'm going to just turn it right over to Eileen here.
Hi, library friends. How are you? Eileen Madden here from Oceanside Library. I am talking to you from our podcast room because we just built a beautiful $33 million building, which opened up in October. So we are very fortunate to have this building in Oceanside. And if you ever get to Oceanside, New York, please pop in and we'll take you for a tour. So Art Adventures is basically an art program that I run for 6 weeks. And I usually do it for 20 children. And I usually have the supplies on hand because I'm using basic supplies, whether it be, next slide, I'll show you. Thank you. Okay, so basically initially I'm giving them a passport, which I have a supply list that if you want to contact me, I'll send you the supply list with the links and everything. But it's a 6 weeks program. They get a little passport in the beginning that they fill out. And each week I give them a passport stamp, which I found online, and you could just easily put it into their passport book. Next slide. Our first week was Australia. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you see in the corner, they have the little My Passport book, which you can find online. They like to decorate it, put their little information in it, and it gives the children a chance to explore different countries and their techniques with the art or crafts that we pick for that week. Now, in my planning and prepping, it is a 6-week program. You can make this 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever you want, but this spanned over the whole summer reading program. And since I am basically the resident children's artist here, and I also do the STEAM programs, I also incorporated some STEAM as well in another program that I do called Passport Kids. So I used kind of the same materials for both programs. So I kind of got a 2-for-1 deal with this. So what I usually do is show a video clip of the intended country or place that we're visiting, then introduce an art form. This week was Aboriginal art. Then they can make 2 or 3 paintings depending on the time that we have. This program cost hardly anything. I already had the paints. We did the silhouettes of the animals online and then used Q-tips and construction paper for the art. So the next slide, please. Thank you. Now we're visiting Africa. Next slide. Okay, so again, I showed a video about Africa, just a very simple children's kid video, usually sci-fi kids or some kind of Passport Kids. Talked about the history of paper beads and how women of the villages make these to make money for their villages, and it's very easy using magazines. There's recycling involved here. You can hit on that aspect. And again, very limited supplies. It's magazines, some glue, and either skewers or straws to roll each bead. And I do this for K through 6, and the kindergartners did not have any issues doing this. I also have a template for the beads and how to cut them. So that will be in the other information. Next slide. Now we're going to Mexico. Next slide. In here, I got the air dry clay off Amazon. It was around $10. I purchased the little sequins. These are little pinch clay pots, which I showed a little video about how they do pottery in Mexico. And they really enjoyed doing this. And it was great for gross motor skills and just pinching and playing with the clay, and even the little ones just molding the clay. And they made these fabulous little designs. And I had the little sequins that you bought in Dollar Tree, and I think a package was $1.25 for like 6 little units. I am a very thrifty librarian, so I either recycle, reuse, or buy in Dollar Tree. Next slide, please. Japan. Next slide. So I found these cute little mini canvases in Dollar Tree with the easel attached, and it was $1.25 for each. Unfortunately, I had 20 kids. So this was my most expensive program here. And we read the book Sakura's Cherry Blossoms, which is a beautiful cherry blossom based book, and talked about the history of cherry blossoms. And the children used the paint to make, the Q-tips to make the cherry blossoms, which was very good with their hand-eye coordination. Next slide. We're on to week 5, and our destination is Spain. Next slide. So we watched a video about Pablo Picasso, and we made his famous abstract bull. This I used cardboard chipboard that I had for another program that was left over. It is a little expensive. It's almost like a scrapbooking cardboard, and it's thinner. It's thicker than card stock, but thinner than real Amazon boxed cardboard. Because if you want to use the Amazon cardboard, it's kind of hard to get the intricate lines and the horns cut out properly. We had some volunteers try to do it and they just came out really bad. They were like hornless bowls. So we ended up using the cardstock and I think the chipboard or whatever. And I think it turned out to be about maybe $6 or $7 for the pack. And then I used oil pastels, which I got from Five Below. I just bought about 3 packets. So they were like 48 pastels per pack. This will all be in my information, but they had a great time making these little cardboard bowl figures. Then next slide, please. We're on to week 6, France. And next slide. So before we moved here, we had these great windows in our temporary space, and I used those as a light box. And if you notice the bonjour sign over here, that I used for them to trace because they weren't too great at looking through the paper. So we went outside. It was a beautiful day. And they just traced them using the outside window as a light box. And then we used watercolors for this. And then at the end of this session, they received their passport stamps for all the sessions that they attended in the 6 weeks. And this was we did a little video of the Eiffel Tower, and some children even have been to the Eiffel Tower, so they gave their views. Next slide, please. And this is my final art show and party. And everyone, during the course of the 6 weeks, if a child wants to leave their artwork with me, they can. We'll let it dry on the side, and then we put it up for display. We either displayed it in the windows that I showed you previously in the old temporary space, and then in the end, we did a whole little art show in the room at the last day. And I served potato chips, and I made it basically looked like a paint chip board, and you can find this on Pinterest. And I just attached chips to it. So that was our paint chip party at the end, and they all enjoyed it. I got little bottles of water, and we had, a good time with that because I'm also the party librarian. I like to do parties whenever I can and have fun with it. And everyone enjoyed it, and the parents really enjoyed it as well. And that's about it. I'm trying to think of any other, it really helped with everyone each week giving their own little views, whether they visited this place, a destination before, or some maybe have lived there, so it was a good thing. It gives
That's
them the broader
fantastic.
aspect. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. We've got a couple questions that have come in.
Sure.
How did you mount the bonjour sign to the window? Tape, sticker, so they could
Tape.
trace?
Yes,
Tape.
tape.
Okay.
And it was, just a print out. I think I printed it out off eBay or somewhere. And so very simple.
That is simple. We like simple in this group.
Yes.
For the final party, did you open it up to the community, or was it for the artist and their families to come enjoy?
Artists and their families.
Okay.
But it was very nice because during the art show in the window, people passing by, they'd say, "Oh, I know that child," or, they really, and then the children would hear about it. They'd say, "I saw your artwork in the window," so. It was
That's
cute.
great. I bet they love hearing that too.
Yes. Yeah.
Another question has come in. How did you play the music from each country while did you play music from the country while they were creating their art?
I basically played classical music. Like whenever I do any art, I usually do the classical music for kids during all of those. But in the end, the last program, we did do a mix of different country music.
Did you? Oh, that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because you had talked about a couple of the programs were a little bit, the cost was a little bit more. Did you have registration? So
we
you knew
do
how
have
to
registration
afford?
all the time because here at Oceanside Library, we have, for children alone, I think it's like over 100 programs a month.
Oh, wow.
So we do have to have, if you look at our event keeper, but we do have to have registration for all of these programs. Unfortunately, I would love to open it up, but supply wise and everything else, it wouldn't be feasible.
It makes sense. But that's great to have so many programs, and this one
Oh,
just stands out.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Got
we
a
really
question
love it
coming
here.
in here. Did the children have the children requested countries to be part of the passport book?
No, I chose them, but if I do it this summer, I'll definitely open it up, maybe do it as a little, raffle, like which country would you like to see?
Okay.
But this one and with the planning process, I sort of looked at what artists are available for those countries and then went from there, or what they're known for, what type of craft or artistic technique.
Oh, that's great. And do you plan on doing it again this year?
I am. I'll probably change
good.
it up a little bit, like definitely new countries, but this is my thing. Color My World. This is like my favorite. Color Our World is like the best, coming from an art background. I'm a former art major, so
This is your year then to shine.
Yes, I love it. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for your time and for telling us all about this great program.
And come and visit Oceanside Library. Take
All
care.
right. Thank you, Eileen. Our
Thank
next
you.
program is also by Eileen, but this one is Eileen Kelly from Long Beach Public Library. She's going to be talking with us about Color Your World with Science. So going from the artistic side to the science side. So Eileen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As she already said, on to the next Eileen. A little bit further south on the south shore of Nassau County, basically in the ocean. We are in Long Beach. We have about 45,000 people in our community that we serve, and we have 2 small community branches, but I'm here at Maine. So today we're going to be talking about Color Our World with Science, which is an art science-based STEAM programming thing. Next slide. So we're going to be experimenting in science with art. They're all simple science experiments that are fun for many age groups. A lot of the parents that participate in the STEAM club that I run here at Long Beach, I do 2 cohorts a year. And these are all experiments that we have done while we're exploring the A in the acronym. So these are best suited for outdoors, but unfortunately, even though we are on the beach, we have veritably no outdoor space to ourselves. So I have been forced to do them all indoors, which is tricky, but very much doable. There's a lot less cleanup and a lot less necessary preparation if you do have the luxury of being able to do them outdoors, but they're all totally achievable inside if you need to do. Next slide. So our planned experiments are 3, so they can all be done either in one big giant STEAM party, or you can do them individually. I will likely be doing them as individual programs throughout the summer reading program. The first one is exploding paint rockets, and the learning objective is chemistry. So we're basically using pressurized reactions trapped in a canister to blast into the air. We use a mixture of Alka-Seltzer tablets, water, and tempera paint. We'll discuss all the materials later, but basically the kids get to create a miniature paint bomb that explodes. Big fan favorite. Dry ice bubble painting is also a big fan favorite. Dry ice can be a little bit more expensive, so this is probably the most expensive portion, but it is a really amazing and safe, fun experiment. When the dry ice contacts the water, carbon dioxide is released, and it creates these giant billowing bubbles. As you drip food color onto them, they can make the most amazing prints. A lot of the times the kids liken them to different flowers like hydrangeas or something like that, but they make really exceptional looking prints. And salad spinner art teaches the concept of centrifugal force. You can use small home-sized spinners. If you can get the really huge ones that they use in the restaurants, which is kind of a lot more fun, but regardless, the small ones are just as good, and they're only about $10 on Amazon. Next slide. So the timing is kind of everything, because like I said, if I've got to cover my entire programming room in plastic sheeting so that I can explode paint rockets, that kind of takes a long time. So if I have to do it indoors, I would allow for about 1.5 hours for my setup. The salad spinner art, about 1 hour. It doesn't make a huge mess, but you still want to have some kind of table coverings. And if you can, maybe a floor covering, because depending on how excited the kids are, they might get a little bit overzealous and spin kind of hard. And I've had them go flying off of the table before. So they can probably be halved if you're able to do things outside, because you don't need to cover rooms in plastic sheeting or put down gigantic tarpaulins. But these are all just kind of wiggle room plans for if you're forced to do them in a tiny room like I am. Next slide. So the first one is exploding paint rockets. So we would need effervescent tablets. Any brand will do. Alka-Seltzer is the official, but I actually find that the store-bought stuff works just a little bit better. Tempera paint is probably something you have on hand, but if not, it's the best because it's a lot easier cleanup. Empty film canisters for those of us who were born prior to 1990, you know, those little things that you used to go and drop off at the photomat and wait real patiently for your developed photographs to come back. They sell them now on Amazon for anything but photos. So those are the best things because they give a nice tight seal, but they'll still pop. Water is in abundance, generally speaking, and canvases or thicker paper for collecting the art. So I say this because I learned the very hard way, as with the Messtival was mentioned, that the kids get real excited, things get kind of juicy, and the paper begins to disintegrate and you can't really hang on to it. So oak tag at the least, I would say, for this one. And basically you just make a 60-40 solution of tempera to water, fill about halfway, drop a half of a tablet in and pop the cover on tightly, because if it's not completely on, you're not going to get the payoff. Shake it 3 or 4 times and place it on its hat. And when you step back, it explodes. I pulled this down from our art gallery. I don't know if you guys can actually see it because I'm on a weird blur background thing, but it explodes and makes it really cool looking. And the kids have an absolutely wonderful time doing it. They do pop pretty high. I've gotten them bounced off of the ceiling indoors. So depending on if you wanted to do a whole tablet outside, you could probably get 20-foot height. Next slide. Salad spinner painting. They use the art of centrifugal force. So, like I said, any salad spinner will do. We have small ones that fit like the 4x4 square canvases, and then larger size ones. We've accrued them from various places, Amazon, thrifting, Walmart, anywhere. You just have to basically make sure that you either cut the paper into a circle or it has to be small enough to fit inside. The kids add a few drops of paper on the canvas, and when they put the lid back on and start to spin, the centrifugal force forces all the paint outward, and it makes a weird kind of tie-dye effect. I always compare it to when you go on the swings at Adventureland or someplace similar, because the kids always seem to understand that concept, and they understand, like, they get pushed out on the swings, the paint gets pushed out by centrifugal force. Next slide. The dry ice bubble painting is a lot of fun. This is a tricky one because handling dry ice needs to be done very carefully, obviously by grown-ups only. But once it's in the water, it is no longer a concern. So the kids can touch the bubbles and get into the bubbles, and it's not dangerous any longer. I like to do this, if possible, if outdoors particularly, in a nice big baby pool, because it's a way cooler example. The bigger, the better. Go big or go home. Lots of food coloring, dish soap, and again, thick or canvas paper. So basically when we add the water and you drop the dry ice in, it will start to create that foggy mist that we all recognize from dry ice. When we add a few bubbles of soap in, it starts to create a misty fog of really small bubbles, but a lot of them. And then as you drip the food color over, you can press the paint or the canvas, or you can lay them around and let it erupt and overflow to create the art. Next slide. So breaking it down to brass tacks, most of the things I either have already in-house or we purchased from Amazon. All of the price breakdowns are here for you guys to order all of the things from Amazon so that it's an easy one-stop shop. But basically, for 25 patrons, it's about $2.50 per patron to do the paint rockets, about $1 per patron for 25 patrons to salad spinner art, and about $2 per patron for 25 to do the dry ice bubble painting. A lot of these things are going to be things that are sustainable and reusable for several other projects as well. So that's kind of cool too. Next slide. Oh, well, that was, I guess, apparently it. So I guess now we have 2 minutes to answer questions.
We do indeed, and we have questions coming in. Thank you for sharing. This sounds, all of them sound fantastic and really fun to be a part of. The first question that came in is, do you have the kids wear goggles or any safety glasses, especially for the rocket when it bursts?
We always safety first. And I always tell them, how can you observe a science experiment if you don't have any eyes? You're going to need to protect those. So yes, we always give them, we try to use reusable smocks and goggles at that point.
Excellent. And that is a great line. How can you enjoy science if you can't see them? Feel that. Can you give any example of the store-bought effervescent tablets that you use?
I have bought them just locally at CVS or what have you, but I got the Care One brand from Amazon. Seems to be the bubbliest customer, if I'm being honest, and it was a little bit cheaper than the official brand name.
That's great on all parts. When you're doing the exploding rockets, where do you put the paper to capture the paint?
I like to lay it down on the floor and then up against the back wall, considering I'm doing it inside. Otherwise, down on the floor is the best because when you lay it on its head, it does tend to go up, but it casts the paint outward. So, and then you end up with these weird little bits of unmelted Alka-Seltzer that start to then create new shapes on the canvas, which is cool.
Yeah. The next question that's come in, have you ever partnered with local science teachers on this?
I have not, but I've had science teachers come and sign their kids up for STEAM and then ask if they could steal all of my lesson plans. So that is fun and very nice.
I mean, you're doing great things if other people want to steal your ideas.
Thanks to Mr. Wizard. It's all thanks to Mr. Wizard.
You say you locally source for the dry ice. Where do you get yours? And some people wouldn't even know where to start to find dry ice.
Most of your local, like a beer distributor, any kind of larger beverage, but we have a place called Beverage Barn just over the bridge here that has, if you can purchase kegs of beer from them, they either have or can order you in short-term dry ice.
Okay. And how far in advance do you get the dry ice? And if it's a couple days before, how do you have to store it at the library?
I usually try to call them in advance. Like if I know I want to do the program, I will call and ask them how long they need to know in advance. Generally speaking, they will always have a small amount on hand, and I don't usually need a huge amount, but I always try and give them at least a week before, and I will usually pick it up the day before in an airtight container, plastic, because it will burst glass. In an airtight plastic container, it will stay in the freezer for a day or two. Otherwise, they will still hold it, and I can pick it up the hour before my program if necessary.
Oh, that's great. And I'm sure all of our communities have at least one beer store.
There's usually somewhere kind of close by that you could find one, yeah.
With the salad spinners, do you clean those in between usages or just let the paint?
We do rinse out the chunkiness. I mean, I don't clean them as if I was going to eat out of them again, but we do rinse out the majority of the chunky paint and wipe them down. You can tell they've been painted in, but it shouldn't transfer to the next project or anything like that.
The next question that's coming is, how large of paper do you use for the rockets?
This last round I did oak tags, and I gave each child their own oak tag to blast off on. In the past, we've used a rolled canvas or rolled paper, which did not work out very well. But large canvases I've also used, like the poster size 16 by 24, I think they are, or something like that. As long as it's thick enough. Oak tag seems to be the most cost effective, if I'm being truthful.
Well, that's great to know. And learning through experiences is fantastic. And then the last question that's come through so far is there a minimum age of that you allow kids to participate or actively participate?
My STEAM club is normally for elementary aged. I started from first grade and up, but I had a lot of really interested kindergartners one round. So I did take 3 or 4 kindergartners in. They happened to be like some of the best because they were in it. They were interested in it. So it really works though. I've had teenagers walk past the room watching 5-year-olds exploding paint rockets and come and go, can we do that? Can we come in? So it's fun for me. It's fun for everybody.
And do you, what's the oldest group then? Have you done it for the teenagers that walk by and want to?
They've popped in and engaged with the younger kids before. I think the oldest kid I had in STEAM Club that went through the entire 6 sessions was 12.
Okay, that's great. Another question has come in back to the dry ice real quick. There's a lot of questions on dry ice about how much does that one cost? You did say that there's a higher cost for that one.
It seemed that it cost me a little bit more in the summer. I don't know if that was by design or not, but right around $10 a pound. And a pound is kind of a lot. So you'd be able to do like a baby pool or 2 or 3 really with that amount.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Another question here is, have you used or would you consider using teen volunteers for help with the STEAM Club?
Definitely, yeah. We do have a nice group of teen volunteers. They help us a lot with various programming, and especially the ones who are interested or really like science-based kids. Sometimes they want to come in and impart maybe a little bit of education. So maybe they can help me teach a unit or something. But yeah, definitely teen volunteers are always helpful, especially when you've got so much cleanup to reckon with.
Oh, I bet. And we have time for one more that's come in. Are there any of the experiments that haven't worked out like you thought they were going to?
Well, I always test because I had learned the hard way by trying to do an experiment. Just, we're going to do this and it's going to be great. And I did not test it. I learned the formula for the paint rockets by a lot of trial and error. And by a little bit of getting in trouble for staining the ceiling with paint. But that's how, we learn. It's a learning curve. There are always times where they don't get the lid on tight enough and it's not a huge explosion. There's always a few disappointments, but there has never been a resounding no all the way through where a kid has not gotten a single one to go. So they learn too.
Yes. Oh, and that's great. And that's a great track record. Well, thank you so much, Eileen, for your time and for sharing these STEAM projects that you do. They sound fantastic. And good luck in your future STEAM clubs and all the new experiments that you'll do with them.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
All right, we have our last presenters for this hour. Again, we do have one more hour coming up. But to round off this exciting second hour, we have Emily Rundell and Stephanie Markham from the Jervis Public Library, and they're going to be talking to us about a color quilt. So I'm turning it right over to Emily and Stephanie.
Hi. So we did color quilt, two summer readings ago?
Yes.
Yeah, and it turned out really great, and it seemed like it would be great for this summer. So we're excited to tell you about it. Next slide. So we're here at Jervis Public Library in scenic, extremely snowy Rome, New York. We are, for our area, a bigger library, but yes. In the grand scheme of the state, probably mid-sized to small. We serve patrons that are farmers, patrons that are living in like the city proper. We've got a wide variety of patrons that we serve, and we try to make sure that our programs are fun for everybody. So, next slide. So this is a passive program, and Stephanie brought it to my attention.
I saw it on the internet.
She saw it on the internet.
I'm not gonna lie to you all. I didn't come up with this idea. I saw it on the internet. And when we say quilt, we don't actually mean a quilt. That would be difficult. We mean a quilt shape made out of paper. So the paper quilt works kind of like a cloth quilt. You have the squares and you make a design on the square and then you put the squares together. And that's it. Since it's made of paper, and I know we have tons of construction paper hanging out and lots of patrons who are willing to donate scrapbook paper. We got some pretty fun designs. We had, a lot of people want to donate a lot of different colors. If you can get volunteers, I had my teens sort all of the donated paper by color, and they were thrilled to do so because teens love rainbows. The budget is negligible. We didn't pay anything. We had glue sticks. People donated glue sticks. People donated colored paper, construction paper, scrapbook paper, printer paper, whatever kind of paper. It doesn't matter because it's all going to be flat. And then scissors, and we had the big construction paper that I think is 9x12 for the backing, like the batting of the quilt, if we're speaking in quilt terms.
And also, if you can't get a hold of that larger paper, you could definitely use your discarded newspaper paper as your backing.
Yeah,
whatever
absolutely.
you
Butcher
can get a hold of,
paper,
butcher paper, craft paper,
cardboard, whatever. You're not going to see the back, so it doesn't matter.
If you're spending any money on this at all, the money you're going to be spending on it is glue, because you know how children use glue sticks. Next slide, please. So the pre-process is where most of the work for this comes in. You're going to want to, for the amount of space that you have to hang this quilt, determine what size quilt blocks you're having people make, and just kind of give yourself a rough estimate of how many people you usually have attend your passive programs, and then just kind of scale that out for yourselves. We have a really great big window next to our reference desk that we used to hang it. So we did the math to figure out 3x3 works best for us. You might have something larger or smaller depending on your population and how much space you have to hang in. You can cut out some geometric shapes to help people make their quilt blocks. We are really lucky. We still have one of those great old like press Ellison machines. So we cut out a whole bunch of our shapes using that. But you can also, if you have a Cricut cutter, you can do that. Little hole punchers with different shapes on them also work great. And if you have volunteers or staff who have the time to just take a big piece of paper and cut it into small triangles or circles or squares, that can also help.
Yep.
Next slide. So they can make their pre-cut.
So we had it set out on a table in a common area, and it was a box, and it said, "Help us make our paper quilt." And if I had been thinking ahead this far, I would have put a picture of that in the slides, but we didn't. So just trust me, it was a sign. It was about yay big. It said, "Help us create." And it had one example of a square. People could just reach their hand into a box, and we changed the box every week to be a different color. So it was always the same neutral backing. And when I say neutral backing, we chose in the pack of construction paper, you get that ugly gray purple, like it's trying to be lavender and failing. That's the color that we used for our backing, because nobody wants that for regular craft projects. So we did that on the back. And then people would glue, all of the different yellow shapes. And we had different tones, so they weren't all like the same shade of yellow. We had, the canary yellow and the goldenrod and the mustard and the whatever other shades of yellow there are. And then they would glue it there at the communal table. And then if we were lucky, they would bring it to the information desk and give it to the librarian sitting there, who would put it in the designated drying area, because even with glue sticks, these things get damp. And you don't want the damp squares hanging out in the communal library areas, because children will find them and they will stick them to other things. And we only want them sticked in the appropriate locations. Yeah. So
That's
after they dry for an
great
hour,
advice.
or more or less, depending on how much glue the patron used, they can glue it to the whole paper. And we let this happen for the children, the teens, and the adults. It was like, it was out there and anyone could do it. And we had some adults who were using like very meticulous, sharp angles. They were beautiful. And then we had some kids that's like, I will put a happy face sticker on it and it is not the correct color, but this is my contribution. And it was fabulous.
All right. That's great. I'm going to have to jump in here because we're getting to the end of our time. But this looks to be excellent. That's the example of your quilt. That's beautiful. So thank you, Emily and Stephanie, for sharing the process and then also the final product. And it sounds like a great tie-in for this year's theme of Color Our World. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our second hour. We have one more hour to go, jam-packed full of other great ideas. We're going to take a short break here. We're going to be back on at 11:30.
So it's an art theme, and one of the ways that we enjoy art in our profession is through the wonderful picture books that we have. So today's transition fun is to see if you can identify which book some of these eyes come from. So let's get started and go ahead and put it in chat. Yeah, pigeon. Right. Don't let the pigeon drive the bus. That's exactly right. That's it. Okay, next up. How about this one? Recognize these eyes? Moments. That was an interesting. No, not Arthur. Not moments. Spot the dog. No. Panda. Not seeing it yet. If I give you a hint, it is moo. Click, clack, moo. Exactly. All right. How about this one? Real oldie. All right. Blueberries for sale. You guys know your classics. Excellent. Okay. That's exactly it. How about this one? Get a little more of the face this time. Maybe it makes it easier for you. Yeah, that's who it is, Joe. I know the name of the book. Oh, Sarah, for the win. Martin's Big Words. Excellent. All right. How about this one? This is a different kind of eye. Durstruck, Ryan Selznick. Ooh, my colleagues are like getting it here. But I haven't heard. Oh, Michelle. Michelle for the win. Hugo Cabret, the invention of Hugo Cabret. Yes. Next up. What this one? It's another tricky one. Oh, you're close, Joe. You're really close. Is? This is stumping you. All righty. Let me show you. Henry's Freedom Box. Joe got the closest. Good job. Okay. How about this one? Right. The Lion and the Mouse. Illustrated by, who can put it in? Oh, Eileen, you rock. You got it. That's exactly it. Okay. And this one, another old one. We'll make this the last one. And I'll give you the answer here. Oh, yes. Timely, you got it. All right. And I see Heidi's ready to go. Good work,
Thanks, Mary. That
everybody.
was great. A lot of great artists, illustrators out there, very inspiring, and just some fun that you can have. Great passive program to think about using that sort of thing on a bulletin board, get people talking about different illustrators from children's picture books. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the third and final hour of our presentation today. We're about to go through another wonderful set, a palette of programming ideas for you here for the Color Your World theme for summer reading. My name is Heidi Eckerson, and I'm your host. Just a couple of housekeeping things for the third hour if you're joining us for the first time today. If you have questions, we're going to have time for those at the end of the presentation, so you can drop your questions right in the chat. If you could put the letter Q in front of the question, that makes it a little bit easier for our team on the back end to keep things straight and ordered so we know what's what. If you're a presenter for our final hour, we've got the slides covered for you. You just need to let us know when to move ahead, and you can do that by saying next or next slide. We'll figure that out. And we're joined here by Katie. She's been with us all day doing a fantastic job with timekeeping. And Katie, I don't know, you had little symbols too, I think, to kind of gently chime people out if we need to, which is kind of fun.
It hasn't been super necessary. Yeah, everybody's been, really mindful. So we'll just keep cruising.
Could we hear the symbols just before we get started? They're just so cool. I don't know if I heard it or not, but it's kind of a nice, simple way, a gentle way. Sometimes when you're presenting, you lose track of where you are in time and space. And we're here to just gently kind of keep things moving along. So please don't take it personally if we sort of nudge you in that direction. But there's just so much great stuff happening today. And we're going to kick off this third hour with Holly Wright from the Schuylerville Public Library. And Holly's here to talk to us about steps and stories. So Holly, take it away.
Hello. So as soon as my slides, there it is. So I'm going to talk to you today about steps and stories. I will try to go through super fast, so I'm sorry for that, but you will have these slides, I'm told, at the end, so you'll be able to look at it more better then. Next slide, please. So what is Steps and Stories? Steps and Stories combines the art of storytelling and movement by creating a short dance, which is about 5 to 6 minutes, that demonstrates a simple narrative. Every week we learn some new moves and then we add to our dance to be performed at the end of the 6 weeks. Next slide, please. This was a video that I put in that I realized didn't work because you guys were using PDFs. So next slide, please. Uh-oh. Oh. It lets us look at the link. Oh, yay! I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, though. That's okay. So this, we're doing Swan Lake. That's what the song is on this one, and the end of Swan Lake. As you can see, there's a lot of chaos in a lot of this. This is one of the choreographed ones. And you can kind of see my arms at the bottom kind of guiding them through it. But most of it, I let them, like this one, I let them do whatever they want. And I just gave them simple direction, like go around and touch the other players and let them flip around so that they can show their real face at the end. As you will see, they will, yep. And then we have our last bit of the song. We had 4 different songs in this performance that I had to clip in. It'd be way more exciting to watch if the sound was working, but and this is our choreography that we did at the end. And if you notice, we do the same, like basically 3 movements. They go to the side, they go to the side, they twirl, they twirl, they twirl. They go to the side, they go to the side, they twirl, they twirl, they twirl. Keeping your chore, and you'll get to the slide eventually also that talks about this, but keeping your choreography really simple is extremely helpful if you even decide to put choreography in. But most of my performance, they don't even have choreography. It's just dance, and I give them some sort of direction. Okay, so next slide, whenever that can pop up again.
Sorry, give me just 1 second.
No worries.
We're live TV, so you never know what's going to happen, and we just kind of roll with it. It's all good.
Yes, it's all good.
All right, all good?
Hey, yay! Okay, so do you need dance experience? No, you don't. Here's your checklist. Do you have a body? Do you like music? Do you have a speaker or a device to play music? And if you answered yes to all of the above, you have everything you need to dance. Next slide, please. All right, participants. I always make registration required. Knowing how many you have is helpful. I do recommended ages of 8+ because that's my personal preference and it's worked for me. I found that if you open it up to too young a kids, it makes the older kids not want to join. And I feel like I usually end up with a group about 8 to 13 is my range that I usually end up with. Next slide, please. So leading up, you want to choose how many kids you want to take on and the age requirements. If you just have one person running this, I highly recommend don't go above 12, but if you want to be brave, go for it. Set up your registration with emphasis that the participants need to commit. We meet once a week for 6 weeks. Create a playlist of 10 to 12 songs, and these songs will be the songs that the kids will have to choose from. And I usually pick a bunch of different genres, and then I usually find instrumental covers for popular songs. I don't like lyrics really. And then I send out weekly emails the day before meets just to kind of remind people like wear dance shoes or sneakers, don't wear jewelry, and wear clothes that they can move in so that you're comfortable and you're safe. Next slide, please. So session 1, this is when we vote on the music and brainstorm the story. If you have time, you can also incorporate an icebreaker or two. I usually do a dance circle near the end where they take turns dancing by themselves at the center, and this all depends on how outgoing your kids are, and I never force anyone to do it if they don't want to. All right, next slide, please. Choosing the music, session 1, we hand out a pencil and scrap paper to all the kids. We listen to the samples of each song. And then once we finish listening to the samples, we vote on our favorites. I ask them to choose their top 3 and place them in descending order of enjoyment. And then once everyone's done, they hand in their papers. I tally up the votes and announce our songs. Historically, I've been using 3 to 4 song snippets for our performances, but you could make it even easier by choosing just one. For ties, you can either use all the songs or secretly choose the one you like best and save your sanity because you're going to hear the song over and over and over again. Next slide, please. For the storytelling, which we also do in our first session, after I've chosen the music, I give the kids new papers to write on. We listen to the songs again, and participants write or draw whatever the music inspires in them. I collect those pieces of paper and set them aside for later. After our first meet is done, that's when I go through those papers and usually construct some sort of very loose plot around those elements. Sometimes you will get a lot of ideas from the kids, and then other times be prepared to supply some. There is absolutely no wrong answers, so just have fun. You will need this story complete by the next meetup. And just remember to keep it simple and broad. You don't want to be too specific. You want to introduce just enough to allow the kids freedom to interpret the story elements and mold their performance to their unique natures. All right, next slide, please. For sessions 2 through 6, we usually do a warm-up in which you can lead them or you can find a warm-up video on YouTube. We watch a dance performance or dance on YouTube, and then we do a dance. We brainstorm and practice what the dance will be. Practice makes everyone more comfortable. We are not aiming for perfection. And then we do a cool down, which either you can use YouTube to lead or you can do it yourself. Next slide, please. So choreography, if you choose to do so, I choose only about 3 to 4 moves, and I typically reuse them over and over. It's easier to make the easier you make it, the easier it'll be on everybody. And choreography is not essential. I give lots of opportunity for them to just do their own things. So I'll give them direction like dance like you're a zombie, your body is stiff, your moves are jerky. You're also scared. What can you do to show you're scared? Those are the kinds of cues that I'll give the kids. Next slide, please. The performance is traditionally done right after a drama club play that I do every year. And we do it at the high school auditorium, but you could do this outside. You could do it in your building, wherever you can find space. The dance takes a total of maybe 8 minutes max. And I usually put it I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Usually put in the first case any of the dancers need to leave and they aren't waiting for the 30-minute play to finish. Yeah. Do yourself a favor and have a rehearsal. This will give you a chance to work out any bumps before the show. Rehearse. Trust me. I always find something wrong or that we need to fix beforehand. All right, next slide, please. All right, these are my last 2 summers of celebrating our self-expression, so I'm just going to give you 2 examples. Next slide, please. Our first year, we did Wednesday Addams Dance on Guitar, which was I found on YouTube. Paint It Black by Brooklyn Duo and Moon Trance by Lindsay Sterling were our songs. And the story was about Wednesday because it was a huge hit that year. And so our theme was very dark and spooky. The story involved zombies and zombie hunters and tombstones. Next slide, please. On our second example, things got bigger. We ended up with 4 songs because we had a tie. So we did Swan Lake, we did Four Seasons, we did Lawless, and we did Middle of the Night for our songs. And in the story for our second year, it revolved around friendship and relationships and how those relationships can become close and then distance and as we grow. Next slide, please. All right, so make your life easier with these resources. Use YouTube. It's wonderful. There's so many classes and cool downs and everything you ever need on there. Get yourself an audio editor if you want. I use Better Audio Editor on my PC, and it allows me to crop songs and do fade out and fade ins. And then places to purchase music, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Bandcamp, or you can be sneaky and sometimes use YouTube. Next slide, please. And the last bit is the dance props. If you can get props, that just makes all the difference for the kids. Dance scarves are fun and inexpensive, and you can reuse them for story times. Silk fans, you can find cheap ones, but it takes some looking. Silk veils are beautiful, but they are expensive. Isis wings or butterfly wings, you can find different versions of dance wings all over the internet. Foam swords, you can find at dollar stores. Masks, you can make your masks. And ribbons, you can make or buy those as well. Last slide, I think. Oh, no, YouTube playlist. So we have some different ones that I gave you if you want to use them. And then last slide.
And Holly, I'm gonna just chime in here. It's the end, and I'm gonna steal your end here. Thank you for including all of those rich resources in your slides, which everybody's gonna get. We're gonna send those out. And thank you for kind of giving us a tour of a performance look, a performance-based program, which is really unique. There was a question here I wanted to just pose to you.
Sure.
Someone asked if there are any accommodations that are needed when kids register, or do you offer movement accommodations?
I haven't encountered that yet. However, I would definitely be open to that. I think that everybody should be allowed in this, and I think that anyone can dance. It doesn't matter if you have just one arm to work with, go for it. If you are in a wheelchair, you can still dance. Like, it doesn't matter.
So many different ways to move, and I know folks are making
Yes.
comments just to see such a nice, broad, diverse group of folks that were participating in the program. So thank you. Very unique, something different, and hopefully folks will give it a try, adapt it to their own
Yeah.
library. Thank you so much, Holly.
No problem.
Great. Oh, someone else asked it, where did you hold your performance? And I guess maybe one of the best things to do is just if you could answer right in the chat, Holly, that would be great. So folks can definitely get some ideas about, oh, where do I have this if I don't have a stage like it looked like you had in your slides. So perfect, great. Well, next up we have water blaster paintings with Kristen Pearson, and Kristen is from the Fayetteville Free Library. Kristen, we're excited to hear about, it looks like some fun, messy paintings. So I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, thank you. So yeah, hi everyone. My name's Kristen. I'm the children's librarian at the Fayetteville Free Library. We're part of the Onondaga County Public Library System. So we're a suburban library just outside of Syracuse. And I'm going to walk through water blaster paintings today, what they are, how to do it, and then kind of what our response has been. So yeah, next slide, please. So water blaster paintings, what are they? It is just basically a really fun, hands-on, high-energy art activity. And what we do is we swap out your typical like paintbrushes for those water blaster toys. You can also use squirt guns or something like that. We just have these water blasters. We had them for a past program. And so that's what we've always used when we've done it. And basically the whole program is just that kids get to use these water blasters to spray the paint onto large canvases and just create a really cool, abstract, vibrant kind of painting. It's active, it's exciting, it's fun, and most importantly, I think to the kids, it can be really messy if you want it to be. So they've always enjoyed it. And then why do this program? I've never really had a problem sort of convincing anyone to do this program, but if you're curious, it's a really fun way to combine art and movement and play all in one. It definitely encourages creative expression, exploration. During the summer, we try to hold as many programs outside as we can. People just like to be outside in the summer, and this is a perfect option for that. It's also nice because it appeals to a really wide range of ages and abilities. Like any age child can pretty much do this. But it also appeals to older kids, to teens, even to adults. Sometimes parents and kids will work together on a painting and sort of do it together. So it kind of just like intrigues everyone, brings them in. And then finally, of course, it fits kind of perfectly with this year's theme. Next slide, please. So what you'll need to do it, the supplies are pretty simple. We use large canvases. And when I say that, I do prefer to use the canvas boards instead of the stretched canvas. They're just more cost effective, and they work really well for this particular project. I think you can get like a 24 pack on Amazon and it's like $40. And that's about what we use when we run this program. So you'll need the large canvases. I like to use an 11 by 14 or a 12 by 16 just to give them more space to paint on. You'll need those water blaster toys. Again, in the summertime, you can find them almost anywhere. Buckets for paint. And yes, we do dilute the paint a little bit. We just use some Home Depot buckets that we have around the library. You'll want some way to prop up your canvases. We have some tabletop easels that we use, but we've also in the past just sort of leaned them up against the legs of like the easy up tents that we have outside. So really any way to prop them up. If you want, you can provide aprons, gloves, tarps, anything to help with your cleanup. And then you'll probably want a water source for people to rinse their hands or rinse the water blaster toys afterwards. As far as setup goes, we have a big open outdoor area that we can use, so it's pretty convenient for us, and any of the splatter that occurs and it isn't an issue if we're outside. So I would say if you have an outdoor area, that's great. If you don't, there are some alternatives I can talk about. And again, you want to set up those canvases so they're leaning because we want some of that paint to drain off. And then we mix the paint in the buckets ahead of time, and you don't need much. I'm usually using like an 8 to 10 ounce bottle of paint. I'll dump that whole thing in the bucket. And then those Home Depot buckets, I'm not even filling that like a quarter of the way with water. You really just want to dilute it enough so it's kind of thinner, so it runs a little more. And it goes a long way too. As far as like the setup of how it goes, I have on here to set up like spray zones, and we've just done that to be mindful that no one's spraying paint on each other or like turning it into some kind of spray paint fight. But what I usually do is set the canvases up in a large circle and then have the buckets of paint in the middle, and then that way everyone can walk back and forth. Grab the colors they want, go spray on their canvas, and then they're not getting it on each other's canvases either. So alternatives, because I know not everyone has an outdoor space or has a large outdoor space. And we've run into weather problems before too. You know, you get like a thunderstorm on the day you have this planned. And so there are some alternatives if you want to do like mini water blaster paintings, you could do it on a smaller canvas indoors. You could use small water guns, you could use spray bottles, even little pipettes you could drip on there. And anytime I'm doing indoor painting, I like to use those tin foil like roasting bands to kind of contain the mess. Just put the canvas right in there. Yeah, next slide, please. So how to do it and sort of some tips for success. It's pretty simple. I'm certain that you could all figure out how to do it just by looking at the pictures. But one of the first things we do when we hold this program is once everybody's there and they're ready to go, we do walk them through how to do it. We demo the technique a little bit. And what we tell them is not to fill that water blaster all the way up because you know every kid wants to get as much paint as they can. But we tell them to go little by little. You can always add more. You can't take it off if you've put too much on. So we just tell them to add like, you know, maybe an inch of paint in there at a time. And they don't have to stand too far away. If you have space and you want to let them, they can. But we tell them to kind of stand just a few steps away and spray it on there. But everyone's always been pretty good about that. Definitely encourage them to experiment as they're going, try all different colors, different angles, you know, take a few steps back or forward, see how that changes, how the paint is on your canvas. But you don't have to do much encouraging. They're ready to explore and they're ready to try everything they can think of, which is great. And you can offer challenges or themes. In the past, we've provided some like painter's tape. If anyone wants to make a design on their first, paint over it and then peel the tape off after. It's really, there's a lot of you can do with it. And then just allowing time for it to dry. We are fortunate enough to have that outdoor space so we can leave the canvases out there. We can tell people like, we'll leave them out here. You can come back in like an hour or two. The sun will have dried them pretty well. If not, we've given people garbage bags to put them on, put them in their trunk and take them home. But if you can let them dry, that's helpful. So then some tips. You can use washable paint for this for easier cleanup. You can use acrylic. I have found I do prefer acrylic. It just, when you dilute it, it keeps its color a little better somehow. And if you're doing that, I would say maybe just plan ahead for disposal of any extra paint. And I know that kitty litter works. If you kind of dump that in the bucket with the paint and the water, let it absorb, and then it's an easy way to throw it away. Let's see. Definitely let your patrons know that you want to wear clothes that can get messy because they will get paint on them. And as long as they know ahead of time, they can plan for that. You probably want to limit the session sizes. We always keep it around 20 to 25, and I found that that's a good size for us. And it works because the canvases come in those sizes of packs. And then again, your cleanup, you want to have some kind of water source or even hand wipes or something because you will end up with paint on people, on things, kind of just, it's messy. But next slide, please. So patron response, this has been a program, we've done it for the past 4 summers. I'm certain that we'll bring it back this summer again. And we've had full registration each time, pretty much full attendance each time, and they just love it. It's kind of a unique thing for them to do each summer. We've had a lot of families that have done it each year, and then they have a really cool like sequence of paintings that they've made. Kids love it. They love the opportunity to be messy, silly, kind of do what they can't do maybe at home, painting that way. And parents like that it's not happening at home, that we get to be messy at the library. And of course, everyone gets to leave with a really cool, unique piece of work that they've created. Next slide. Just including this in here because we love it so much. This is one of our regular families. They've come every summer to do it. You can see in that first picture up there in the top left corner, the first year we did it, Carson in the middle there, he kind of just did that pose unprompted. That's just his personality. And then every summer since then, he's insisted that we take the same picture with the same pose. And this past summer, he did get to add his little brother into the program, so that was just a really sweet kind of extra. I think next slide should be it. Yeah.
Great. Oh, thank you, Kristen. And thanks for giving some alternatives for folks that may not have the space. It's very practical to be able to think about how can I adapt this to what I have and what my library space is. We do have a couple questions that came up. You mentioned that you dilute the paint, and somebody wondered what that ratio of water to paint was that you were using.
So usually when I'm doing it, I will dump the whole bottle of paint in the bucket, and then I will just sort of, we have a hose outside. I'll sort of water it down. I'll do like use that bottle of paint and do it like 2 or 3 times, and then I'll test it on the canvas and see how it is, if it's holding its color well, if it's running down the canvas like we want it to. And as soon as I find the right consistency, then I'll just do the rest like that. I want to say it's probably like a few bottles of water to 1 bottle of paint.
Gotcha. So a little bit of an experiment in and of itself when you're testing
And I think in the past, like it's depended on the brand of paint I've used too. They're always a little different, so.
Sure. And just another logistics question too. We noticed that the canvases were propped up, and somebody wondered what you were using to prop up those canvases.
So we have these, they're like metal tabletop easels. We have them left over from a program years ago that we did. It was supplies we bought back then. We just happen to have those. But if you don't have an easel or anything, you can sort of find like any way to lean them up. But like they don't even have to be fully upright. You just want them to be tilted a little so that paint will run off a little bit, so it'll dry better. You could possibly do this with the canvases flat on the ground and then just let the paint run off at the end. But anything you have to prop them up will work, yeah.
And folks were kind of chiming in with some of their own twists on this. Folks were wondering if, you could have kids paint on each other's canvases and maybe even, encourage some kind of camaraderie and community painting. And then also folks were saying, hey, we did something similar, and they gave the paintings away to folks in nursing homes. So I think there's just so many like extensions of this project that you've created for us.
Yeah, the funny thing about this project is it could be done in like 5 to 10 minutes. These kids could paint a whole canvas in 5 minutes, spraying that paint on, but they want to keep doing it so much that they'll spend like a half an hour on their canvas. So if you have extra and you want to do a group canvas or ones to make and leave at the library to display, we've done that, not with this program, but in different programs, and they love it. And then they love coming back to see it and see their artwork displayed somewhere.
Great. Yeah, it is all about kind of, being this, I did this, I made this. So someone asked what the kitty litter was for, and I believe you gave us a nice overview of the cleanup of this, and you're just using the kitty litter to mix it with any leftover paint, because that's how you can dispose it. I know where I live, you can take stuff to Sherwin-Williams too, and they'll take care of it for you. So lots of possibilities for how to clean up after something like this.
Yes, definitely.
Great. And we're going to get all those slides, and you can always reach out to any of the presenters today to share ideas or get more information. So Kristen, thank you so much for sharing that idea with us. Looks like a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And our next presenter, I just love the title of this program. Laura Markowitz from the Huntington Public Library has a program called Whimsical Witches. It's wickedly fun. So Laura, it's all you. Tell us all about this.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm from the Huntington Public Library in Suffolk County on Long Island. And this is my program, Whimsical Witches, but it can also be adapted. I've actually done like a Valentine's Day potion too, which I'll touch on here. So it can be adapted for like really anything. It's mostly just potion making. Next slide, please. Okay, so for Whimsical Witches, I did it for ages 4 through 7 with parents or caregivers in the room. Sometimes we don't have parents or caregivers in those like the 6, 7-year-olds, but this really worked with the grown-ups in the room. I did it for 45 minutes. We did it a Saturday afternoon in October, a little bit of a lead up to Halloween. And I read the book What's in the Witch's Kitchen by Nick Sherratt, which is my favorite Halloween book. I talk about it whenever I possibly can. I have a whole slide on it right after this, but you can read any Halloween book if you're doing it with a witchy theme. The bulk of my planning was really just looking at other people's pre-made potion kits that you can buy on Amazon or on Target. I like to give those as gifts for my kids' friends. I think they're so cute. So I thought like maybe we can adapt that and do it in a larger scale and just buy some of that stuff instead of spending all the money for like 18 kits. And potion programs are fun for all ages. I feel like there's almost no upper age limit for it, and really maybe even no lower age limit if the parents are in the room. And again, you can adapt it for lots of different things. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is my favorite book, What's in the Witch's Kitchen. It is unfortunately indefinitely out of stock on Baker and Taylor, but you can buy it still used on Amazon. But just to quickly go through it, it's got these flaps that open this way or this way, and on one side it has something kind of gruesome, and on the other side it has something delicious. So you can have the kids, really, it's super interactive, so you'll have the kids tell you which way they want you to open it, and they'll find out if they chose something delicious like tasty cheese or raspberry tea, like in the pictures here, or fleas or goblins. I think it's a British publisher, because I have a version that says Goblins Pea, so I believe this, I guess it's published in other countries too. Okay, next slide. Here's some other Halloween books. I know they get the slides, so I'll just kind of include this, and I don't really need to go through them, I don't think, but these are other ones that I like if you don't have access to What's in the Witch's Kitchen. Next slide. Okay, so here's how I laid out the program. I had, the top is just a water bottle that it's just plain water. And then I pre-poured different colored waters instead of having the kids pour in the little food color droppers. It's just a little bit more fun this way, and kind of helped me visualize how much water would be fitting in. I had a fishbowl, $16.99 on Amazon. I thought this was definitely the best way to make like a bulk potion, because you can see it all the way through. You know, it's clear, it's big, it's sturdy. And then you can just put in really anything. So I used some of those flat glass marbles. You can kind of see them in the middle. We just had them in the library. Assorted glitters, I have different kinds here. Again, it's just stuff we had. We bought some little leaves. This was a big one that I noticed on the pre-made kits on Target, so I bought some of these. Little flower, beads, baby oil, fruity fragrances. That's what I had here, but really anything you have lying around, sparkly, anything works. Next slide. Thanks. Okay, so here's pictures of the kids pouring in the stuff. I had them make a line, which became kind of just a gathering, but it started as a line. I had them wear witches' hats for this one too. You wouldn't do that, obviously, for Valentine's Day or something else, but it worked for this one. And they just took turns pouring in different things that were sitting on the table. I think in this case, they each got to pour 2 things, and you can kind of have one kid pour in one color glitter and another kid pour in another. You know, you can just kind of work it so that you have the exact right amount of things per kid. One kid could mix, or they all could mix. You can kind of play with it a little bit, but they really liked doing this, and it was exciting. You know, they all got to have like a turn in front of the group. All right, next slide, please. And then after they finished, oh, I forgot to tell you also, we all said like hocus pocus. So after they finished that, they sat down with their grown-ups and they worked on these 2 crafts. So these are the 2 crafts they did. They took their witch hats off and they just decorated it with stickers, super easy. And then the other craft was that they made like a garland. I pre-bought witch hat punch outs, which you can kind of see in the second picture, but you can totally cut them with a Cricut too. This was just easier for me. Which they also decorated with those same stickers. So we just had the stickers out and they just decorated all the things with their grown-ups. I put out tape so it was easier. And while they were doing that, actually, next slide. while they were doing that, meanwhile, I went back to the potion table and I used a little tiny funnel that came with these bottles seen here to funnel everybody like a little bit of the potion to take home. So I bought these car air freshener diffuser bottles. I think they're only sold like in a 50 pack, but you can do multiple programs with them. And they come with little teeny funnels that fit right in. And I just used like a cup to give everybody a little bit of this potion to take home. So I had these all lined up. So on the way out, everybody could take like a little piece of the potion that we made together home also. The total for this program was about $110, but you can get lots and lots and lots of programs. I mean, I think with the air fresheners, I've gotten like 4 programs out of this. So you get a lot for it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's just quick other potion program ideas. I did Valentine's Day love potions a couple of times, actually just recently. These slides are not from the most recent time. So this I did with older kids. In this version, you can either make a batch potion or they can make individuals, or you can do a mix of both. Recently, I had them all make a batch potion together and then we did their own individual ones. And then the batch one, I had them take home in the little bottles too. So for this, I gave a couple more options. I gave them their choice of scents instead of just putting a few out. I let them put in the little food coloring packets, droppers on their own, so they had more choices of colors, more choices of glitter. I put out Alka-Seltzer for this one, which doesn't really work, I don't think, with the big potion, with the like the big class batch potion, but it works well with the little potions here. And they mix this in plastic mason jars that I believe I got on Oriental Trading. They're cheap. And then they can just take that home right in what they have it, seal it up tight. Had I known, I would have bought duct tape to seal it up even better. So it's a little tip. So yeah, you can use this for literally anything else. Warm weather magic potion, luck potion for St. Patrick's Day, rainbow magic potion for Color Our World, literally anything. And no, I didn't do a story with the Valentine's Day one. I think I have one more slide, maybe 2. Oh, here's some ideas for Color Our World books that could lend themselves to potions. You'll get these, so I don't know that I need to go through them, but here's a nice little color list. Good read alouds. All right, now I think I have one more. No, that was it. Yeah, so again, it's like a super flexible program you can do with anything, stuff you have lying around, cheap, and the kids love it.
Thank you. It's sort of like the minestrone soup of programming, because like you said, you can just like pull anything that you have and make it happen. And we're kind of getting some comments in the chats. People love this. This is an amazing idea. Who doesn't like to mix up potions and concoctions? And maybe I'm just projecting, that's me. And you know, we mentioned that everybody's going to get the slides, but it's so wonderful to have those resources at the ready, just to see what people have used that works. So having that experience and having you share your experiences is amazing. I see one question here. Do you ever use anything besides water as a base, like maybe baby oil?
We include baby oil, so I have a mix, but it's definitely mostly water, and then I'll just have like 1 kid or 2 kids like squeeze in some baby oil. It's mostly water.
Great. And that gives it kind of another viscosity, so things will float in it, right? It's kind of fun. Kind of a logistics question. Do you do pre-registration for the program?
Yeah, always.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to make sure you have enough stuff and all that good
Yes.
stuff.
Especially for the craft part too. You know, you need enough jars.
Yeah. Right. Well, you can keep asking questions in the chat. I do see one more coming in. And someone says, have you done this not around Halloween? And I'm thinking from some of the stuff you showed, yeah, this kind of plugs into lots of holidays, right?
Yeah, I actually started it as a Valentine's Day program to make love potion. It definitely works for that, but I think it would be really cute for the summer too, to just make like a colorful potion and do some of the rainbow books that are on that rainbow book slide.
Right. And we've got some mad scientists in the chat here adding all kinds of fun stuff like vinegar and baking soda. There's a lot of Alka-Seltzer and explosions happening, I think, in today's programming. That's fantastic. So, well, thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your ideas and just your enthusiasm. What a cool book, too. I'd never heard of that book. So, good stuff. And we are going to round out our third and final hour with just kind of a simple idea. If you've got the space, and even if you don't, Sarah Knoble from the Groton Public Library in my system, actually. Sarah's here to talk to us about her giant wall board game. And Sarah, you said that this has been extremely popular. It's a great way to get kids in the library. We'd love to hear more. And it looks like you're still muted, Sarah. So I'm going to have you, and I'm going to mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Hey, I'm Sarah Knoble from the Groton Public Library in Tompkins County. I'm here to talk about the giant wallboard game. Next. This is something we do. It's all summer long, and we've been doing it for over 8 years during summer reading. It's an oversized interactive game. The only requirement, you do need to sign up for summer reading to participate. The cost, you could do this for next to nothing. You can see the game board is made up of sheets of paper. They're 8 by 11 that we laminate. So start and finish, we've used from the beginning. We use the CSLP images, the clip art, to make the game board pieces that they land on. And at the end of the time, you can flip them over and then use them as part of the game board. Yeah, so you could purchase what you need or go wild. The game pieces, we use a die cut machine, which you can borrow from your system for free, and cut out images. We have the kids write their first name and last initial, no last name for confidentiality and privacy. And we do laminate the game pieces that they use to move along the game board. But if you use cardstock, you wouldn't have to laminate if you didn't have a laminator. Next. We hang the game pieces from the string, and then kids of any age, and yep, even adults, roll the giant dice, which we pick up at the dollar store, and move their game piece along. When they start the game, they get a free book. We have access to a lot of free and low-cost books, so we're lucky. So every time they start the game, they get a free book. Every time they land on an image, which we use the CSLP clip art, they win a free book. When they finish the game, they get another free book. So I'm betting a lot of you have websites where you can go to get low-cost books. So why don't you share those in the chat, and I bet our hosts would put a list together for us, and we can share the knowledge and get low-cost books. And then ask your local Rotary Club and other organizations to collect children's books for you. We do that, and we get a ton of books all year long. We give away books during the holidays. So it's just another way to do it. We tried using little prizes from Oriental Trading, but the kids did not enjoy those. They wanted free books. So next. Finally, they could play the games as many times as they want, all summer long. The one thing we do ask is they only come twice a day. We were having kids in the beginning coming 6, 8 times a day and driving their parents crazy. So parents were asking us, can you please limit? So it's twice a day, because once the kids do it once or twice, they know exactly where the dice are, where the game pieces are, where their game pieces, where the books are. And we have a 50-foot hallway that we set this up in. So we have, and it's set up similar to this, but a lot more spaces in between the game board pieces. So it's all the way down. They go all the way down one side of the hallway, back around, and they finish and go. And then they usually run because they already have a book picked out that they want. So next. Here's a list of what we use. I'll take them. Of course, you're going to get copies of this, but you can use whatever you like. Make it for your, do whatever you need for your library. But we use stuff we had around here to make it, and we just continue using it all the time. I think that's what I have. The next piece, yep. Again, I'm Sarah Knoble, Director of the Groton Public Library, Director at grotonpubliclibrary.org. 607-898-5055. Feel free to call and say hi or come and visit.
Sarah, I got to tell you, I'm just going to say this, and you're going to get a lot of calls. Sarah's one of the first folks I met when I kind of got into the business, and you're so generous with your knowledge and just willing to share your ideas. So you're so approachable, and I think that's one of the reasons why kids feel like very comfortable in your library and feel like this is great. I can throw some dice down the hallway and get the books. Do you put the books on display ahead of time then, so they can kind of know what they reminds me of sort of like a carnival game. You can see what, oh, I'm gonna try for this book. Is that the concept too?
We do. We'll have like the teen books at the top. So basically it's at the level where they see. So picture books and board books are at the bottom. Then J books, and we use the teen books to lure teens in because they often don't want to sign up for summer reading. So if they see a trail like Hunger Games was big. So we'd have all three of the Hunger Games books. They would come in, and if they would sign up, I'd say, you start the game, you can have all three books. I will give you. And they would then, oh, yes. And then they would come back and say, what else do you have? And so, yeah, it was a great way to lure the older, because the young kids, they all want to play it up to about middle school. And then they start to be like, well, that's not cool.
Gotcha. So it's a great way to introduce people to summer reading who might be a little reticent.
And it's
folks are
and it's
dropped. Oh,
I would say
ahead,
it's
go ahead.
really easy. It gets so that even once they're signed up and they know what they're doing, staff don't even have to go back with them. They just come back and play
That's
and
perfect,
pick their
because
book
maybe
up.
you could speak a little bit to that. Somebody did have a question. They were just maybe a little confused, and maybe because it's such a simple concept, about how the game is played. If you could just break that down for us, very simply, like if
Say sign up for summer reading, they'll come back. We'll have a table and we'll have like this little summer reading bag that they get. And then the dice are there and it's along the whole 50 wall corridor. And the pieces are hung from string with a clothespin. The kids will come and get the dice, roll it, and they get a die cut image that it's maybe about that big. And they'll write their name on it, but only last initial. And then we put double-sided tape on the back. And they move that along the game pieces. And every time they land on an image, they get a free book.
So it's pretty much just a life-size game, very simple concept. They're rolling the dice, moving their piece, landing on the different game board pieces, and then ultimately getting free books. And folks are dropping all kinds of links in here about where to get those free books or lower cost books.
Share the wealth.
Yep. And someone says, do you leave the pieces up in between trips to the library? Like my game piece would
Yeah,
stay up until...
It's up all summer.
Okay.
It's up. Well, we do a summer reading kickoff. So that's when it, come in for the giant wall board game, among other things. But yeah, the game runs all summer long.
Great.
So
And
it stays up all summer.
It sounds like it's just an expected thing now. You started it and it's been running for a couple of years now. So
yeah, about 8.
great.
This will be probably our 9th year.
Holy cow.
And the kids look for it. It's so easy. It's so inexpensive.
Perfect. And I'm looking off because there's a couple other questions coming in here. Do you have multiple copies of the same book? In case folks want
Depends on what we
same
get
book?
sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes it depends on what we get for free. And I try to keep it either, a lot of them are used, but I try to do like almost new books.
Gotcha.
I try to keep it so that it's like really nice. So they're pristine books.
Perfect.
So it depends on what we get donated, what we pick up. 1 minute left.
They're perfect because we have one last question that came in here. Someone said, have you done it with older ages? And I think you kind of talked a little bit about that, but.
Well, last year was the first year we had adults ask, and it was like, sure. Because I have an area where I have free books. So if people come in and maybe they can't get a card or I love that book. So we started adding free books for adults. I'm equal opportunity reader, literacy for everybody. So we have everything from board. All year long, I'm giving away free books.
That's a good business to be in.
I know, isn't it? So yeah, all ages are welcome to play.
You're getting lots of cheers in the whoop, whoop,
on my shirt.
in the
I gotta say my
sidebar
shirt.
there.
Na na na.
Empathy rocks. Perfect. Great.
It's
Well, thank you so
Rhinedown.
much. Thank you so much for sharing that very simple idea that I think anybody can recreate. So fantastic. Thanks for coming
And I
this
like
morning.
I don't know your counterpart, Katie.
Well,
I
I'm
like your
green.
little
It kind of
headband
fell
thing.
off
Oh,
at
I
one
didn't
point.
see
I got
yours.
paint all over the floor. It's a mess. I don't know. But great.
The
Well, thank you so
paintbrush.
much, Sarah. Yep.
Thank you.
Or paintbrushes today. Good stuff. Great. Well, again, you're going to get the recording. You're going to get all these slides. And I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Joni, who's going to wrap it all up for us. So, Joni, it's all you.
Can you hear me? Perfect. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our annual Children's Summer Reading Workshop. We hope that today brightened your thinking, shaded new ideas, and painted a clearer picture of how we can bring creativity to our libraries this summer. You will be emailed a few items from your library system rep, including 1, a recording of the workshop as well as the slides. 2, an evaluation survey. So I'm actually going to drop that link into the chat right now as well, even though it might get lost, but you will get that emailed to you. We would really appreciate it if you could fill out this survey so that we can continue making this workshop impactful for the future. And the third item that you'll receive from your system rep is some professional development information, because each system is handling this differently. So thank you so much again. A very special thank you to all the librarians who presented today, as well as a team of amazing colleagues who made this happen. Great job, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and cheers for summer reading.